Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
My whole life has been nothing but a hole where my podcast should have been. It always left me aching, but I never thought about what it did to you. I don't have a Dakota.
No, I'd be impressed if you did.
Yeah. Is this the this is sort of the end of the run of Child Dakota,
Look,
right?
This is unfortunately all I was thinking about for most of it. I was like, man, the Dakota star arc is weird. Yes,
We're gonna
this is
dig
the
into
end
it.
of young Dakota, I guess,
Right.
because next year is New Moon. And then the year after that is the Runaways, and I feel like that's when it's like she's a grown up star.
But she becomes supporting, or if she's lead, it's in much smaller films. But this is the end of this insane run in which, like, not even like Macaulay Culkin, but where a small girl became like a prestige highbrow movie star.
It's a weird thing.
There are a lot of career arcs to talk about here.
Yes, there are.
But what were you going to say? It's also
just funny that like she was like, one of the big kid actresses when, in the 2000s, and she's still around, but her sister is the one who got famous in a way.
I feel really bad about that.
It's odd.
I don't know.
Like it's like,
yeah.
I remember Elle playing baby Dakota in I Am Sam, the movie that like launched the Dakota Fanning thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a little fact. It was like, oh yeah, and she has a little sister who looks like her. She played little baby her.
And I am a noted Elle stan. I've talked about her a lot on this podcast when she comes up. I think she's a great actress. It is weird how Dakota has just sort of become the secondary Fanning.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
despite
odd.
Still working. I mean, it's not
She's
like
still
she
working.
backed away. They were mid-production in that there was the film. What's it called?
I don't know.
It might be called The Nightingale also, but it was Melanie Laurent directing Dakota
it's called The
and
Nightingale.
Elle Fanning.
Oh, the World War II movie? Or is that a
Yes.
different? Yeah.
And
okay.
it was
It's a World War
supposed to
II movie,
be
yes.
a big Oscar release at the end of this year. And then obviously production got shut down. And now they don't know when it will resume. But I was excited about that movie. A, because I like Melanie Laurent as a director. And B, because I like the idea of putting both of the Fannings in there. I feel like it's time for a real Dakota surge.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, fine. I support it. I like Dakota. She seems nice.
She's good.
Chris White said she was so great.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, she's good in that. Like all her small appearances, she's been good in. She's good in the Twilight movies.
She's good.
She is
she's
good in the Twilight movies.
She is.
She's a little creepy person. I vaguely remember it. I haven't seen her. She's one of the Sheen.
She's a Volturi.
Yes.
She's the Volturi.
I just
Right.
Watched
Cool
New
Italian
Moon like
vampires.
2 days ago.
Right. It's Michael Sheen, Dakota Fanning, and the pretty boy from Sweeney Todd.
Jamie something.
Oh, Jamie Campbell Bower.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, as someone who has watched the closing credits of Breaking Dawn Part 2 many times.
It's one of your favorite videos.
Yes, I love the closing credits set to, what's that song? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, that. I know everyone who is in the Twilight
A
movies.
1,000 years.
That one, the 1,000 Years song. That's it.
1,000. We'll dig into all of this because, of course, this is a podcast called Blank Check. It's about filmographies. Directors who have massive success early on in their career and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want, which doesn't really apply with this career, but kind of does, sideways. This is a mini-series on the films of Gina Prince-Bythewood.
Mm-hmm.
And the mini-series is called Pod and Basket Cast. And today we're talking about, is this her highest grossing film?
Yes, I believe so.
The Secret Life of Bees.
I mean, unless you count Netflix saying that, a billion gajillion people watch The Old Guard.
Yeah, I'm looking here. There's a new Netflix update. Apparently, everyone who has ever died in the
Yes.
spirit realm has also watched
Right.
The Old Guard.
That's right. That's right. Yes, it has 1 quadrillion views.
Look, on the record, not to get ahead of ourselves, I love The Old Guard. I'm very happy if it's doing well. It's a little bit weird that, like, early in a week, Netflix releases, here are our top 10 most watched movies of all time. And they put that list out, and Old Guard is not on it. And then 2 days later, they're like, never mind, Old Guard is the most popular movie ever.
So number 1.
Our guest today, returning, and sounded like she had something to say about Netflix statistics. So I want to introduce her so she can dig into this. From the Bad Romance podcast, from Brows Held High, new podcast on Patreon. Great film critic, great friend of the show, Jourdain Searles. What do you want to say about Netflix's dodgy numbers?
I don't understand Netflix's film model. I think that's all I was going to say. I don't really get their numbers. I don't really understand Netflix as a brand at all. But whatever. Sure. They're hemorrhaging money, I'm sure. I don't know.
Well, I have been I don't want to say a Netflix truther, but I've been a person who for the last couple of years is like, Netflix is, no pun intended, a house of cards that might collapse within 2 years. Like it was built upon just like increasing amounts of debt, outspending everyone else in the hopes that they could outlast everyone else just long enough. Like much like what happened with Amazon, where Amazon like was losing money every year until Jeff Bezos became the richest man in the world. What a great reality we live in.
Sure.
That was the model that Netflix was chasing. I think actually the pandemic has saved them. Like, I think their subscriber rate has gone up so high, and now all these other streaming services launching are bombing in a way that Netflix might have been given the Hail Mary pass by our broken world.
Unfortunately, I've written about this too much, and people who know more about the stock market have gotten in touch with me and said, like, Netflix was never in trouble. It's the same thing as Amazon, where it's like, I look at it and I'm like, this makes no sense. They don't make money and they lose more money every year.
So much debt.
Right.
People don't understand how much debt.
Yeah, but you can
Netflix
just
has.
sell the debt. I mean, like everyone is just like, no. I mean, it's the Amazon story. It's just like, no, they know what they're doing.
Nothing
Capitalism's
matters.
weird.
Nothing matters. I also think Jourdain, like Netflix made the decision because when they started out, it was like, wait a second, are they going to be streaming HBO? Are they going to be like prestige? There's a high level of quality,
No, they're
high level of
Blockbuster.
talent. Not even. They're Walmart. They're
Right.
like, our
It's just
brand is
everything.
Walmart. It's just everything for cheap.
Yeah. Which reminds me, I tried to watch something on Vudu last night, and I was just like, absolutely not. Everything about Vudu, like, is offensive to me personally. But I did see that they, I don't know if you were aware of this, but Vudu, it's probably canceled now, but Vudu like launched a show, which means that Walmart launched a show, and it was like a Mr. Mom sitcom starring
So
Hayes
glad.
MacArthur.
Yes, I was going to bring this up. Yes.
And I feel so bad for Hayes MacArthur every single time I think about it. I'm just like, he's a funny guy. I don't want this for him.
Wait, is Vudu owned by Walmart? I don't think I knew that.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Vudu is a Walmart streaming service.
Wow.
But they
I mean,
just
I see
sold it off. Walmart sold it to Fandango. So, like, I feel additionally bad for Hayes MacArthur because not only are you on a Mr. Mom reboot on a streaming platform that borderline doesn't exist, where no one knows there's any level of original content, but also it was one of those things where Walmart was like, we're going to make a ton of shows. Walmart is going to be making shows. And then they made that one show and they're like, we're kind of out of the making show business, but here's one show as a remnant of that. And then they sold the whole platform.
Wow. There's so many of these platforms. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Vudu. It's always being pushed on me. They're always like, don't you want to check out Vudu? And then I look at it. It's just another way to watch movies.
Just logging into Vudu pissed me off.
Well,
like their on-screen keyboard is blue because it's Walmart, but
Yes.
the contrast with the letters is not good, and I just couldn't find the fucking letters, and I was just cussing the entire time. And then by the time I got to it, like the movie that I wanted, I still had to pay money. It's like, I can rent this on YouTube. I didn't need to do this.
The value of voodoo, if I can even call it that, the voodoo value, the V squared, was this hack. It's not even really a hack, but the sort of the value was Movies Anywhere, which links together your purchases from any platform to every other platform, was compatible with Vudu. It still is, but it seems like they're nerfing this feature a little bit in terms of limiting what you can do it with. They had a thing for a while where if you scan the barcode of a movie you own, you could then get it on digital for Vudu for only $2.
Sure.
And then you'd get it on iTunes through Movies Anywhere. But also, all it mattered was that you were scanning the barcode from your home in terms of location, your zip code, but you could pull up a photo of a barcode on your computer and take a photo of that on your camera phone.
You've already lost me halfway just like describing it.
This does seem very hackable.
I mean, look, I made out like a bandit. I got a robust Vudu library, which slid over to my iTunes library, but now I have no value for Vudu anymore.
Wow.
Anyway,
Voodoo
this
valueless.
is that Voodoo that you do, our podcast about voodoo.
I don't think so.
Yes, it is. It's a voodoo podcast. Voodoo bought us, David.
Voodoo could buy us. They could make an offer. I want to hear. I would put a number on it,
No, this is a miniseries on the films of Gina Prince-Bythewood, and we're talking about The Secret Life of Bees, a film that weirdly I feel like is the movie that gets forgotten about in her canon. Like, people forget that she made this, but as we said, is her biggest film.
It's her highest grossing film, and it's probably the one that got the biggest sort of like Oscar-y kind of push. Like, it had your classic. It was a Fox Searchlight movie. It came out in the fall. They premiered it at the Toronto Film Festival, like based on a book, a best-selling book.
Right, because Beyond the Lights
oomph.
and Love and Basketball were not viewed as sort of serious awardsy movies. And
Which
this was
is weird
very...
because Beyond the Lights is like a serious awardsy movie. Like,
it
when
is,
you
and it
watch
rules.
that's what it is.
It is the most classical Hollywood awards movie. And
Yeah.
David and I have argued about this for years. I think it's just better, earlier. Star is Born. And it was very perplexing to me to watch Beyond the Lights get roundly ignored, and then 5 years later, everyone flip out over Star is Born, which I don't dislike.
I totally understand. I really like Beyond the Lights, and I really like A Star is Born, and I agree with you. And I've also seen all the other versions of A Star is Born. So yeah, I mean, it does fit in. I don't know, maybe I'm trying to figure out what could have gone wrong with it, because I mean, all of the ingredients are there, I guess. Its issue,
lack of stars, I think, was its issue. Obviously, Star is Born had the big star power thing.
Two-pronged thing.
It was sold kind of. It wasn't really sold well.
Right. She hung a movie on two people who were not named stars at that point in time, which is already an uphill battle. And it wasn't positioned, like, they didn't send it to festivals.
They did. It was the opening night movie at Toronto. Yeah.
Beyond the Lights was?
Yeah.
I had no idea. See, I just remember it sort of just being like dropped wide release opening weekend, that they didn't really push it like it was. And
it was Relativity, which was a weird little studio that was
Relativity
sort of like
was about to go under. Like, this is right when Relativity is spiraling and collapsing, and Ryan Kavanaugh.
So I think that was also an issue. But it was a well-reviewed. I think in terms of it not sticking with audiences, it premiered at Thanksgiving time, and it didn't have big stars. And even though it was well-reviewed, for whatever reason, people just kind of ignored it, which is rude, because it's great, and I can't wait to rewatch it.
I can't wait either.
I also
it's
love
actually my favorite movie from her.
Absolutely.
I think it might be. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to rewatch. I'm not sure.
But I'm also very weirdly not a Love and Basketball fan. I feel like
interesting,
and it's a real I don't know why. Like, there are things about it that I really enjoy, and Sanaa Lathan I'll watch her do anything. I met her once and my glasses were broken, and it was like the fate came together to put me in this weird position where I got to meet such a beautiful woman with my glasses like literally falling off my face. Like I had like tape and I had like positioned the arm and the arm was coming off. And anyway, she was very, very nice and said that she liked my name and she's very, very beautiful, but I don't know. I broke my glasses.
She is very beautiful.
My favorite actor of all time, Philip Seymour Hoffman. The one time I got to meet him, I was an intern in the production offices of Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, which that whole movie was shot on sound stages. So like the actors would come into the office a lot, but he's so intense and like in his bubble that he wouldn't. And he came in. It was like a half day where he wrapped early because Sidney Lumet always wanted to go to the Hamptons on Fridays. And he'd work so fast that they would wrap at lunch. So I was eating lunch at my desk, and I was like the lowest ranking intern. So I was the desk closest to the door so I could like weed out the chaff or whatever. And I was eating corn on the cob. So my hands were covered in butter. And Philip Seymour Hoffman comes in like sweats, like top to bottom sweats, pants, top. And he's gotten like he's wrapped for the day. He's finished his acting and it looks like someone just performed an exorcism on him. Like he's drenched in sweat and his like soul is out of his body. Like he's just like, I've given myself to my craft. I'm done. And he comes in and he's like doing like full Philip Seymour Hoffman, like befuddled sort of thing. And he goes like, do you have a pen? I need to write something down. My bad Philip Seymour Hoffman impression. And I'm just holding corn on the cob like Bugs Bunny, like eating it like a typewriter, butter dripping down my face and my hands. And I went, yeah, there's a pen right there. You can just grab it for yourself. And I was trying to say, you don't want me to hand you a pen because I'm a butter boy.
Right,
I got literal butter
You're sounding
fingers.
like you're like, what am I? Your pen person? Go, the pen's over there.
Right. And he went, okay. And like took the pen and walked away. And I was like, wow, what a terrible interaction. Someday I'll get to restore. I'll be able to share this as an anecdote.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrible. I just feel like you always meet the best people under the worst circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really. I was actually, that was like the day that I met Sanaa. I was doing press for, God, what is that movie that no one saw? The New Native Son. Yeah, I interviewed the whole cast, and it's like a really interesting cast full of like people that like, you know, like Ashton Sanders and stuff, but it was just weird doing press for a movie that no one watched, and it ultimately ended up no one watched.
The only thing I remember from that was the premiere of Sundance last year. And it got bought by HBO for $1 bajillion before we even got to see it. Like we were walking into the theater and we already know like HBO bought this. And we're like, okay. And then I remember the screen lights up. They show the Sundance pre-roll and then the HBO Films logo plays. And they had announced it that day. And everyone in the room was like, oh, that was the biggest reaction. Everyone was like, how'd they get the logo in so fast? It's a very, very, very boring recollection. The other thing I remember about that movie is that, spoiler alert, when the insane thing happens, the whole audience gasped. And I was like, did no one read this book in high school? I thought this was like a signed reading.
It's such a weird adaptation, and also
it's a very weird adaptation.
Everyone felt, I don't know, like when I was interviewing them, they felt the white people were very uncomfortable when I interviewed them for that movie, which I thought was really great. I was like, no, talk about. I met Maggie Qualley. I don't know what her name is.
Qualley, I'm not sure. Yeah,
and
Nick Robinson, Love Simon himself.
Right.
Yeah, Nick Robinson did most of the talking because I would ask her a question and she'd just be like, "You're Nick?" And I'd just be like, I just didn't expect the Love Simon guy to be the one doing most of the talking. But I think she didn't want to talk because I told her that she was great in Death Note and I think she thought I was making fun of her, and I wasn't.
Okay, you want to talk about awkward celebrity encounters?
She's good. She's a good actress. I generally like her. Anytime she pops up, I'm like,
she's always good. This
Yeah.
is on the subject of awkward celebrity encounters. This has also happened to me a lot where I meet someone famous and I go, hey, you were great in blank. And they think I'm trolling them because
The
I
Neil
have.
Patrick Harris story. That's the
Right.
one I like. Yeah.
I met Neil Patrick Harris and I said, hey, you're great in Undercover Brother. And he gave me the iciest glare of all time. And he went, that one?
He is great in that.
He is!
Yeah, he
That's his
is.
best performance! I was being genuine!
He's in like he's in a
look down on Undercover Brother. That's
I don't know.
his best work.
Yes!
he shouldn't look down on it. Maybe he's not in it that much, so maybe he's kind of like okay.
Yeah, but
I've
it's
thrown
quality, not
myself around
quantity.
the Broadway stage. I did magic. You know?
he was great in
It's not
Assassin.
like you said like a million ways to die in the West or
No.
something. Like I feel like that would be the troll answer.
That
No,
would
it's
be
a
very
good
trolly.
movie.
I love you in Beastly. That's my biggest NPH poll.
Look, I saw Beastly, okay? I wasn't saying you were good in Beastly. But I feel like very often people think... I'm trying to think of other examples. The Neil Patrick Harris one is the big one. That's another Zoom bomb. Okay, approve him. Ah! Oh, no! Ange!
Oh my God.
David!
Jesus.
Jourdain! It's Molasar.
I didn't recognize him at first. He's just like a big glowing orb.
It's Molasar, the villain, the evil entity from Michael Mann's never released on US DVD motion picture, The Keep. Oh, God.
How could we forget? How could we forget Malasar? That's how he gets out in the first place.
I tried to forget because he scares me so much. His glowing eyes and his super shiny bald head. There's not a hair on this guy's body. You know, he looks so eerie. And
Yeah,
I'm
Malasar, are you just misunderstood? Like, what's your problem? Is he gonna answer us?
No, it just seems like more glowing eye stuff. I mean, here's what I think might be the problem with Molasar, Ange. If I can talk as a guy for a second.
Yeah, talk as a guy, Griffin.
For guys, so much of our identity is wrapped up in our hair. From how it feels after getting a fresh cut to the way it's perfectly styled before going out. That's why we get to our 20s and 30s, start noticing the first signs of hair loss. Definitely feels like panic time. God forbid you're Molasar. You've been trapped in a pyramid with Nazis for like 100 years and your hair
Yeah, it
is missing.
seems like a bad time.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, no guy's ever ready to go bald, and especially if you're deteriorating or deteriorating into a monster.
Inside the keep.
Right. So thankfully now there's Keeps. If you want to keep your hair while being stuck in the keep, it's the simple and easy way to do that. And did you know that 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35? So even just looking at the cast of The Keep, it's like Scott Glenn definitely had a receding hairline.
sure.
Ian McKellen definitely has had a receding hairline, thinning out over time. Gabriel Byrne has held up pretty well. But that's 2 out of 3 major male cast members from The Keep. And Molasar, I know that you're stuck in The Keep, but I have good news for you. You don't have to go to a doctor's office anymore, okay?
I don't know. Pretty good timing for him, huh?
You can just, do you have like an online connection? Molasar's nodding. All you have to do, you visit a doctor online and you can get hair loss medication delivered right to your home or keep. They make it easy. Deliver your medication every 3 months so you can say goodbye to pharmacy checkout lines and awkward doctor visits. Things I assume you have never done in your life that have always been a barrier for entry for you. You might have tried them before. I mean, one might have tried them before. Looking at your dumb Molasar, I don't think you've tried anything before. But at this price, no one's ever seen anything like this. And Molasar's got a very faint smile. He's got a little grin at the corner. I think this is working.
Malasar.
Now, Molasar, listen to me. Keeps treatments usually take between 4 and 6 months to see results. So it's important to act fast. Okay? The sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you'll save. So if you want to find out why Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors, which I think Michael Mann's The Keeps has very, very few 5-star reviews if you were to check Letterboxd. All you got to
I think
do.
more people have tried Keeps than actually seen the Keep.
Absolutely. Keeps treatment starts at just $10 a month. Plus, for a limited time, on behalf of old Griffey Nooms, you get your first month free. Okay? You want to go to keeps.com/check. No promo code, just the unique URL, keeps.com/check. That's KEEPS.com/check. Drop the in the keep. It's cleaner, but then add an S because it's plural for all the hairs you're going to save. Yes, it's keeps.com/check. And Malasar's flashing 2 big thumbs up. Jourdain, I feel like you are somewhat similar to David and I in that I will see you very often shout out a great performance in a movie that no one is even putting any thought into, right? Like, I feel like very often people, if a movie isn't good, or especially if a movie isn't successful, they just throw the whole thing away. They just treat it like, well, that doesn't work. And I feel like we on this podcast love being like, this is a really good performance. This person is getting what this movie is. You should be able to extract good elements from a not wholly successful movie. And I feel like successful actors very often, if the movie isn't successful, treat their own work the same way. Like they're like, I must be bad in that because that didn't make money.
Sure.
No, it's not true.
I mean, I guess some actors just don't rewatch their work as well. Maybe so he's just like, you know, he maybe has never even seen Undercover Brother. Who knows? I just love that one. It's so weird.
That was the wording. That one?
Yeah, that one?
I actually just bought a DVD of Undercover Brother, a used one, because I was like, I need to have this in my life. I was thinking about it.
Oh man, did it ever come out on Blu-ray? Now I wonder, like, do I need to get high def Undercover Brother? Listen, today we're talking about The Secret Life of Bees. Now, this is one of those examples of a movie where, like, the book gets optioned at the galley stage. Lauren Schuler Donner, who's a big producer, gets sent the galleys in the way that I think a lot of big producers, the big publishers, will just send them any new books they have coming out. And so she reads it at that stage before it becomes this massive bestseller and goes, wow, this is a movie, buys the rights, or options them. I think it takes about 6 years. She carries it over to a couple different studios. I think it starts out at Big Fox, and then it goes somewhere else, and then it ends up at Fox Searchlight. But over that period of time, the book just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
It was definitely at Focus at some point, because that's when David Gordon Green was going to make it.
That was the big thing I was going to say. They went through a lot of people, but David Gordon Green was the big one for a while. And that's when they announced, like, Dakota Fanning is going to do it. She's a little young for the character as written, but what a weird phenomenon that we have this major prestige movie star who is 9 years old. We have to rewrite this around her. And David Gordon Green, I guess they mostly were hiring because they're like, this guy made Undertow and George Washington.
Yeah, because
like
he's right. He's the guy who makes your sensitive Malikian, you know, and
Southern,
I don't know. Right. Yeah, he's a Southern guy.
Child-based dramas.
I love David Gordon Green's early work, and his later work is very confusing to me.
Okay.
He really weirds me out because I remember I loved his, like, All the Real Girls. Is one of those movies.
The Real Girls.
I adore that movie. I haven't seen it in years. I'm almost like, first three should movies, I revisit? Yeah.
Yes. That early trilogy, I think, is perfect. Like, George Washington, All the Real Girls, Undertow, I love.
They're great. I never saw Snow Angels. I know that kind of, like, didn't go over. Yeah.
Snow Angels is, it's like, meh.
It's meh.
And then he had his real, like, sort of, you know, what's his, Danny McBride, sort of stonery comedy run.
Right.
And then he was doing stuff like Our Brand is Crisis, where I was like, is he just like a for hire guy now? Like, I don't get it. And then Stronger was a movie that I like loved. And I was like, even though it was kind of ignored and it was like a, you know, feel good Oscar-y real life movie, I was like, oh, this is so well directed. And like, I'm so happy like that he's making, and then now he's like trapped in Halloween land. So I don't know what's up with that.
But
I don't like him doing Halloween.
I don't either.
I don't either. I mean, I've had no desire to revisit that movie. Like I saw it with a cheering audience. It was fine. Like, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I stood in line for it. I was at the festival. I actually sat next to Elijah Wood to see the movie, and that's the experience that I think most of.
Did he have a good time? Did Elijah enjoy it at least?
Oh wait, was it no? Okay, wait, no. I saw Us with Elijah Wood. Who did I see?
Oh, that's
I don't know.
cooler.
I think I ran into someone else for Halloween, but no. Elijah Wood seems to like just be like a chill guy.
He's like a chill guy who likes horror movies and stuff, right?
Yeah, he just likes to go to the movies.
He likes a genre film.
I bet if you told Elijah Wood, I loved you in Flipper, he would say thank you.
Yes. He wouldn't be like, that one?
No.
Well, Elijah Wood's just not like, I don't know. I feel like he doesn't take his career like as seriously as other actors do. Like he picks roles because he wants to have fun, and you can tell.
And he also produces so many horror movies. It's very clear that he likes movies. Like he is not picking the path of the obvious career for someone who starred in one of the biggest franchises of all time. He's picking the path of, I want to use that power to just carve out my little corner of the film universe doing the stuff I like to do.
Yeah, and watching him watch Us was so cool. I've just never seen, because like I see movies with press a lot, and it's like they're not paying attention. Meanwhile, Elijah Wood is just like leaned in, just like paying direct attention, and I love that. Love when people actually pay attention to the movie.
You know what movie is already more relevant than when it came out 18 months ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Us.
I like once a month think about like, man, Us is aging really well, huh?
Us is doing great.
Us is killing
Good movie.
I do think it's interesting because like after those first three, the Southern Gothic sort of like Malikian inner lives of children, David Gordon Green movies, I was like, man, this guy, he's the guy. This is going to be the dude who has the career. Like he's got a really clear style, but these three movies are kind of different genres. And then he becomes somewhat anonymous. And there's even the weird thing of like within his comedy run, Pineapple Express, for all of its faults, feels like it's made by a very specific director. The Sitter does not. In the same way that, like, even though Stronger is very different from his early films, it feels like it's made by a very specific director, and Our Brand is Crisis does not. And I remember at the time, like, my exposure to Secret Life of Bees for the first time as a book was hearing that David Gordon Green was going to make it, and being such a big fan of his, and being like, ooh, I'm excited for a new David Gordon Green movie. And you think back to, like, at that point in time, reading about this book, you had a very clear image in your head of what that movie would be. And at this point, if you hear David Gordon Green's going to make this, you have no idea what that could be.
I never saw this movie. I, for a long time, thought it was a spelling bee movie because there was that spate of spelling bee movies.
And Aquila and the Bee.
Aquila and the Bee. And I was like, this must be another spelling bee movie. And then I saw the poster and it was a honeycomb. And I'm like, well, okay, I assume it's actual bees then.
I've seen this movie before, so this was my second time watching it. This is the kind of movie that I kind of hate the most, so I almost feel like I don't really come to it with the kind of like wide eyes. Like I'll watch a movie that's just like about like I watched Frankenhooker, and I'll just be like, I'm watching Frankenhooker. My mind is open. I want to know what's going to happen. Whereas like Secret Life of Bees, my mind is like this, and then it just keeps on closing as I get angrier.
I am with you entirely. And I am such a big Gina fan. I had put off watching this movie for so long for that very reason. I'm like, this is not my type of movie. This is in like the collection of subgenres that I'm least inclined to like.
Right. I mean, and I love Southern movies. Like the thing about Southern movies about racism, like I dig those. And I actually think that like if David Gordon Green had made it and if the character
it might have been a little darker.
Yeah. And I probably would have preferred that version of the movie just because the kind of stuff that they're working with, the kind of themes, I just feel like they could have been opened up a little bit more. And I also think about the way that David Gordon Green, like one of my favorite David Gordon Green movies is Joe. And so I think about like the Paul Bettany character. What would that look like in a David Gordon Green movie? And I feel like it'd be closer to Joe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the element that Gina feels least connected to here is the South of it all, which was obviously David Gordon Green's strong suit at this point.
Right.
Right. She's, of course, a Californian, but like, it's also, she just has, in all her movies, like, she has so much sympathy for her characters, and that is a quality, like, in her filmmaking. Like, I didn't hate this movie at all. Like, I don't
dislike it, but it's fighting against my expectations of this type of movie.
But I hate to use this word because it's a pretty broad and uninteresting word, but like, this movie is a little boring.
Yeah.
And that's not like, it shouldn't be. Like, it's not, the books, I'm sure, whatever, like a gentle read in its own way. But like, this is not about boring things, and it doesn't have boring events. Like, and yet there's something a little like, the tone never just, spikes in either direction.
And those are the Southern movies that I hate the most. Like, I prefer, like, as a person from the South, like, there's a lot of complicated stuff. I hate it when it's depicted like a little bit too cartoony, but I also hate when it's a little too soft as well. And so it's just like, when we're like dealing with all of these different things like racism and stuff, I hate it. Like, if it can be played in history class, it probably means that the depiction of racism is not that great.
Yes. I agree. That's what makes this fall into the category of like movies I'm not that into. The movies that are sort of like, book closed on racism, wasn't that bad? Like,
well, and it's like the lesson being learned is not an interesting lesson, I guess. Although I also was sort of struggling to, I guess what she's learning is that her mom was a complicated person as well, right? Is that the personal lesson?
It's heavy on the mother themes, I guess.
I can see like Gina, who wrote the movie, right? Like, so like and she's the only credited writer. So I'm assuming she's being brought on early enough that she is doing the whole thing, right?
Digging into a lot of the special features on the Blu-ray, it sounds to me like she was maybe brought on as a writer first.
Okay.
When they
That
were
makes sense.
struggling to crack this story. David Gordon Green never figured it out. The book doesn't seem to have much of sort of like a driving plot. And so they kept on taking different stabs at it, and no one could figure it out. They bring her on as a writer. She's the first one who cracks it. They let her direct it. But I think they viewed it as like, finally, someone has a handle on this. And the two elements for me that it feels like she's connecting to here are, one, the thing that is like, she's so focused on these small moments of human interaction and connection between people. I think the backdrop of this movie and the larger sort of stakes at play are less intriguing to her than this idea of this haven in which these 5 women are living together. Like, that seems to be the thing she's interested in, and that's when this movie works the best, is when it's just the dynamics at play, the smaller sort of movements.
Yeah, it's like a portrayal of womanhood and community, right? That's not a lot of the tropes you would see in a movie about Southern racism.
There's the other angle that it feels like she's very connected to, which is, I think I read this in Bilga's been writing so much good stuff about her with Old Guard coming out because he's a big Gina stan. And he wrote like a long form piece and did an interview with her and a review and everything. The Quiet Storm, I think his main piece is called. But she was the byproduct, because she was adopted. She grew up with white parents in Southern California, but her biological mother was white, and she was given up for adoption because I want to say it was in the South, and her mother knew that she would be reviled in her community for giving birth to a black child.
Correct. Yes. Right. She said that it was not a good experience, her, reconnecting with her birth.
So her mother gave her up for adoption as sort of like a defense mechanism against violence in her own life. And it took her a very long time to find her mother. And when she found her, she had a hard time connecting to her, and she doesn't really have a relationship with her. So that feels like the big in for her, is this idea of like, this
you have this character trying to figure out her own mother, who's this absent, mysterious
the mother must
figure,
be the turnkey to me understanding myself.
Story for me like makes me think more about Beyond the Lights too. I was just like,
that's a very good movie about mothers and daughters.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the movie that she writes that feels like it's far more representative of her own relationship.
Right.
But I think that's the thing that she connected to, is the idea of being a small child, being so driven by this idea of, I need to know what my mother's like. But those elements of it feel so kind of plotty. Like they feel so obvious, like sort of movie, I need to fill this gap kind of stuff in a way that is, I don't know, it just feels like going through the motions a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to know more about the mom, like in general. I needed to know more about her to really understand. Like, I feel like there's just so much, maybe because the movie is very like for kids, I feel like the whole like sex of it all is kind of missing.
Sure.
And I think part of it is that, like, I mean, how do you talk about, because the way that they describe her mother's relationship with Paul Bettany is that he was in the war, she was impressed by that, they were in love for like 6 months, and then she didn't love him anymore, but she was pregnant, and so they got married, and then, like, I guess presumably he became abusive, but I feel like there's so much of that like, I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to know why he was so bitter in the first place, aside from just like he was in a war, so that just makes him bitter. Like there was just, I feel like because this is so seen in the child's, like I feel like the relationships, the adult relationships don't really get like any like nuance or room to breathe. And since that's like hinging so much of what's going on, because Dakota Fanning's not really like doing a whole lot. I don't know. It's very hard. Like I kept on thinking about My Girl 2, which I'm a very big My Girl 2 defender. I think that My Girl 2 is great. Which like it's just about Veda trying to figure out about her mom, and it's like a more, I don't know, it's a more intimate story because she's like talking to like people that her mom used to date and like looking at footage of like what her mom was like. And it's just like, it's more of like a what kind of woman is she and what kind of woman am I going to be kind of thing. And I kind of wanted more of that here.
And that story is like one of the types of stories that hits me hardest emotionally. Like anytime a movie goes for like, I'm trying to learn about someone I never really got to know myself and learning through the other people they were close to, that's like a total like Griffin emotional breaking point for me. And this movie is only dealing with it in this kind of like central mystery way. Like it's so focused on, did she come back for me or did she come back for her stuff?
Well, it has that, but also it's not focusing on it for most of the movie. It's a weird sort of prologue, epilogue time is when she's really thinking about that. And then when she arrives at the honey, house.
Yeah.
She kind of just is like, well, I'm going to get into all this now. And like, it kind of just gets set aside until Bettany comes back.
I mean that the only aspect in which it's interested in that is solving that one mystery. But the movie becomes so much less interested in the way where you're like, Gina just wants to make a movie about these different characters in a house together. Like, I feel like she talked about how like she was trying to avoid the sense that you need to represent all the isms on one of the like behind the scenes documentary. Like she's like, the book is so focused on the isms of the time that I felt like I could drop a lot of those and really just focus on the character interactions and not worry about proving too many larger points. But that also means that when the movie starts to get to those scenes, it feels a little less engaged. Because it's also like, that's kind of, it's interesting. I mean, Jourdain, you're talking about this movie's weird relationship to sex. I feel like she makes very like mature representations of sexuality in film. Like I feel like Old Guard, Love and Basketball, and Beyond the Lights are films that are really interested in like a level of emotional intimacy and what connects people to each other, and how those dynamics change at different levels of comfort in a relationship. And movies that all feel very sexy without being graphic because they're so keyed into the psychological aspects of sexuality in a way, or at least in sort of attraction. And this movie feels very kind of hands off with all of that. And there's like one of the featurettes on the DVD, they're interviewing the whole cast about like the differences between the characters as written and how they were adapted and how they chose to play them. And there are a lot of interesting choices here where, like, the Jennifer Hudson character, which I think Jennifer Hudson might be the best performance in this movie.
Yeah, I think so too.
And she also kind of gets sidelined for the whole middle section.
She also does. Really just there in the front. Yeah.
She gets like one line at the end. It's like, well, I'm going to vote now. And you're like, remember that plot line?
I'm like, oh yeah, that was what set this all off. Right.
They bring her back into the fold in like the last 20 minutes, but the first like chunk of it is so much about her. And I think she's really fucking good. And the thing that's interesting is in the book, she was supposed to be a much older woman. And Gina was the one who said, it feels like that's a very stereotypical dynamic. I would rather that she be closer in age to Dakota Fanning. I think that's more interesting if they're closer to being contemporaries. And it's someone who is somewhat at the beginning of her life and has the potential to have the civil rights movement actually affect her at an early stage for the rest of her life, rather than being a woman who's in her 60s and sort of was never given these opportunities, that she's sort of at the beginning of this opportunity. And I think that like that works. And that opening chunk, even though it's going through a lot of these like plotty sort of motions, the stuff that works is the dynamic between the two of them. And the Queen Latifah character is much older in the book. Like she made a lot of those shifts, which I think work. But then they interview Hillary Burton, who at this point was like Total Request Live correspondent, who then becomes a One Tree Hill star. So she's very much in this sort of like teen pop world. And this is like one of her first big serious roles. And she said, my real goal with this was to make sure that my character was not just the lady in the pictures, because in like movies like this and stories like this, there's the character who people just look at an old photograph of and they never feel like a fully formed human being. And I wanted her to feel like real and three-dimensional. And it's a bummer because it just feels like the movie is not giving her any room to be anything other than the woman in the picture.
Yeah, because I mean, her vibe is actually really interesting. And I think that's, and I was just, she doesn't like, I don't know, there's a certain way that like Southern white women are kind of like, I don't know, there's certain like posture that Hollywood gives them where they're just like all these like very like dignified kind of like Southern belle kind of posture. And she just seemed chill and, you know, she seemed like open. She had like a very like open expressions in her face. Like I could see like she seemed like a human person.
She does.
I don't know. Sometimes I think that like, and maybe it's just because she doesn't get to say a lot. And so it doesn't really get bogged down by her trying to do an accent or anything like that. But yeah, I wanted her in more scenes because I thought that she was really interesting.
This movie might be better if it was more a parallel story about Lily and Rosaline both making this journey, both arriving at this community.
A Mamma Mia too, if you will.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And both being changed by it, you know, both like, you know, emerging as different people. And I mean, I like Dakota Fanning, and it was interesting, as we were saying, watching this movie. I was just recollecting like, oh God, remember when she was this just like super poised child actor? I feel like we talked about it on our War of the Worlds episode, right, Griffin? We must have.
Yes, but I do want to do a little bit of a career sidebar here. Go on. I'm just pulling up the
I don't think she's very good in this movie. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but like when we're getting to the big stuff at the end and when she's having the big breakthroughs and she's crying and she's having these long conversations with Queen Latifah's character, I was kind of like, she was the center of the movie, and I was really always struggling to lock into her. And maybe it would be, maybe it benefits if you give Jennifer Hudson's character more to do.
I think she's a very skilled actress, but there are scenes that I think the one I'm thinking of is the one where she gives the like, I'm an unlovable monster speech to Latifah, and then she like falls to her knees. And it just feels like such a big,
it felt
dramatic.
Acty.
Right. It feels very acty. I mean, that was, part of her thing. Like,
She
interesting?
shot her fucking mom. Like this
Yes.
is the like darkest thing in her that she will ever have to say to anyone.
And
basically,
trauma is so weird, and there are so many interesting ways of expressing trauma as an actor
sure.
and as a filmmaker. And then you get to that scene, and it's like it is the most sort of off the shelf. This is a person having an emotional breakdown in a movie. It's not representative of, I think, how anyone actually processes trauma. It's only how people play trauma in an acting class.
I think the character of May, if anything, represented trauma maybe a lot more accurately. I watched some interview where Gina talked about how casting for that role was, she wanted to be really particular about it because she said, in her words, it could tank the movie if it,
yes,
was
it's
too
it's
cartoonish.
the role that if you do too much with that, you're just okay, it would throw everything off. And she's very good. I mean, Sofia Canedo is a great actress.
I want to go performance by performance, actor by actor, because I think that's the most interesting thing to talk about with this movie.
Yeah. And I
sure.
also wanted to say real quick, because I was also in my head, because when this movie came out, I was just at the right age. Let's see when it was. It was 2000. It was 2008. So I was in high school. So I was just a little too old for it, but still I was still aware enough of children's films and stuff to have an opinion. And I remember thinking this should have been Anna Sophia Robb.
Interesting.
She was always the sort of the tastemakers Dakota Fanning. Yeah.
Because Anna Sophia Robb also did a bunch of did more kind of Southern roles than
Winn-Dixie.
Yeah. And
Sure.
Anna Sophia Robb, I feel has a better handle on that entire environment which is weird because Dakota Fanning is from Georgia, but she just doesn't seem like a person from Georgia. Neither does Al, honestly. It's really weird.
Okay. Let's dig into this Dakota Fanning sidebar, okay? Because I always just assumed in my mind, especially because Dakota and Elle are both good actresses and were so skilled at such a young age. I was like, A, they feel very coastal, and B, they feel very like Haley Joel Osment. They are the children of actors or acting coaches. When you hear about Haley Joel Osment, you're like, oh, his parents were actors, but they never really made it. And then they became acting teachers. And then he was born. And you're like, oh, so he was raised in a household where they taught him how to act and the work ethic of being an actor.
And he was a consummate professional at age 8.
Right. All of that stuff. I'm like, that really comes out of, oh, my parents were failed actors, but they instilled in me the sort of the workflow of being an actor and the day-to-day of the job. So I always just in my mind was one of the Fanning parents must be an actor, right? You look at their Wikipedia, and not only, as you said, do they come from Georgia, which is surprising, but also their entire family is sports.
Yeah,
okay?
A lot of athletes, yeah.
Her mother played tennis professionally. Her father, minor league baseball player. Maternal grandfather, former American football player. Her aunt, former ESPN reporter.
Jill Arrington.
Right. They just come from this pure sports family. There's no sort of just Southern sports. And then these two very formal, hello, I'm a serious child actor. Kids come out at age 3,
I will say, she went to school in California. My guess is they eventually moved to California because she became an actress at such a young age,
right,
that she was doing all this stuff. Yeah.
But it feels very much the cart followed the horse. It was she comes out and is
100%.
hello, I'm a tiny thespian. And they're I guess we have to move to Hollywood?
When she was in I Am Sam, she didn't get the Oscar nomination.
No. She got the SAG.
But she got a SAG nomination, and I do remember it was a real conversation where it was are we about to nominate a 6-year-old? Is this going to happen? Because the Oscars nominate kids, obviously, but 6 is very young.
I mean, how old was Tatum O'Neal?
Tatum
O'Neal, I think was 11, 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Quavanzane is still the youngest, and that feels like they finally broke that barrier. Quavanzane, there was also the thing, though, where that movie was shot.
Right.
2 years before played at Sundance, which was then a year before the Oscars. So by the time she shows up at the ceremonies, she's 3 years older than she was in the movie.
She was 9 when she was nominated or whatever.
Yeah, she was 6 when they filmed
like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't just that she had like cute little chubby cheeks and she was a sweetie. Like she was a poised actor, like at a young age.
Uptown Girls is like
Uptown
my favorite.
Girls.
Yeah.
Man on Fire, she's like great in. Like, like when she was a little kid, she was very impressive. I never saw The Cat in the Hat. Griffin, I'm assuming you have seen that.
She's good in The Cat in the Hat, but The Cat in the Hat itself is
a nightmare movie. She's doing the Uptown Girls thing. I mean, this is what is so fascinating to me about Dakota Fanning. Here's a very, very young child who became a major movie star, right? And the other examples of this are like Macaulay Culkin and Shirley Temple, and to a lesser degree because they were a little older, like Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney. And the dynamic there is like they just represent a kid so well, and they're not exclusively beloved by kids, but they definitely, a lot of their movie stardom is that kids see themselves on screen. And then Dakota is this weird anomaly where it's like she became a major movie star, but it was almost based on she seems like a tiny adult. Nothing about her seems childlike, and she was either giving like wise beyond her years performances,
which is like
really,
I Am Sam, right?
In really intense movies. It's like I Am Sam, War of the Worlds, Hide and Seek. Like whether they were prestige, Man on Fire, whether they were prestige or like mainstream. The premise was kind of this actress is having to play very harrowing things in very adult films, and she seems to be doing it with a lot of professionalism and poise. And then the closest she comes to movie star performances, the closest she comes to having like a movie star persona is the Uptown Girls, Cat in the Hat. I'm a little child who acts like a 78-year-old woman. I'm high status. Well, Dreamer is like the one outlier where it's like, here's a family movie where Dakota is playing just a kid. And it's the one that exists the least.
Sure. Never saw it.
I have never seen Dreamer.
She was Charlotte's Web, right? Is she the kid in that?
She is. And she's actually good in Charlotte's Web. But it is funny that like so little of her career was tied to her being a sort of avatar for children. It's like she's got her movies in which she plays a real kid, but those are adult films. And then she has her movies where the entire joke is she doesn't behave like a child. And those are the movies that kids could actually see.
Yeah. And then when she hit like young adult age, like, cause like this is 2008 and 2007, she did a movie called Hound Dog, which I have seen.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, I have not seen Hound Dog. I only remember Hound Dog as the movie everyone made such a fuss over when it was like announced or what, like it was like, well, wait a second. She's going to be in this, grown up movie where she's abused and like, well, I don't know if that should be allowed. Like, I just remember there being a lot of discourse about Hound Dog at the time.
It was this is Dakota Fanning's Pretty Baby. It was like the movie where everyone was like, is this humane? Why is she doing this?
Hound Dog is a very depressing movie, but like it's depressing in a way where it's like it's the kind of role that you would I don't know how to say this in a delicate way. You usually don't see white kids deal with that in movies. It's usually like everyone but white kids. It's a very like, I don't know, the kind of melancholy of Hound Dog. It reminds me a lot of like stuff like Precious, stuff on the lines of that. And it's weird to see her there because she's just so like well moisturized and like pristine. And I just don't believe that she's like really going through it. Yeah, that's what
she looks like a little doll.
She's just little. She's like porcelain. So yeah, Hound Dog is like she did like 2 Southern movies, and this movie and Hound Dog was like the dark one, and this was like the nice one. And now she doesn't do Southern movies anymore, and I'm actually really happy about it because it's weird. She seems weird. Like she doesn't seem like she belongs there. It's weird.
Right. It's like 2001, I Am Sam. That's pretty much her debut.
She played kids. No, she'd been in ER and Al McBeal and stuff. Like she'd done kid roles.
Right. Then the next year is like Trapped, Sweet Home Alabama, Hansel and Gretel. I think in this Hansel and Gretel movie, she's like not Gretel. She plays something else. Sweet Home Alabama, she's in very briefly.
She is being read a story.
Right. She's the Fred Savage role in that.
Yes,
Sweet Home Alabama, she's playing young Reese Witherspoon. Trapped, she's like, that's that weird abduction movie with Charlize Theron.
She's a
and
kid
Kevin
in
Bacon.
peril.
Right.
Yeah.
Then 2003 is like Uptown Girls, Cat in the Hat. That's like comedies in which the premise is she acts like a grown lady, right? And then you go Man on Fire, Hide and Seek, 9 Lives, War of the Worlds. Like this is Dakota Fanning is like acting alongside major movie stars, playing like extreme circumstances. And Steven Spielberg is doing interviews and going like, she's as good as any actor I've ever worked with. She's amazingly skilled at assessing a situation, figuring out what a scene needs. And it becomes like the Dakota Fanning show on SNL. Like the joke is Dakota Fanning is this weird adult in a child's body who like is like very sort of like erudite and pretentious. And then it's like Charlotte's Web is her last kind of children's film. Then it's Hound Dog, Secret Life of Bees, Coraline, which she had obviously recorded much earlier.
She's great.
Which honks.
Great in Coraline.
Yeah, Coraline honks.
Yeah.
She honks
She's
in
in
Coraline.
Push, which of course is the reason that Precious is called Precious. Because
Yes,
of the movie
I
Push.
remember that.
That important franchise. But then now it's this pivot point. And it's like Push, Twilight Saga, Runaways, Twilight
Runaways.
Saga.
She's good in the Runaways.
Twilight Saga. Yeah, she's good in all these things.
She's also going to college at this point.
She's going to college.
She went to NYU. I believe she actually graduated. Like,
yes.
She seems to have made that like a priority more than some young actors would.
From 2009 to 2013, all she really does is the Twilight movies and some things that never really saw a wide release. And then it's like Night Moves, Effie Gray. Like
but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Starting with, I would say, Night Moves.
Tell me the thing. And before you get into this, is this with Alec Baldwin or without Alec Baldwin?
Here's the thing with Alec Baldwin.
Okay, thank you.
A lot of the movies that are in her filmography later, I've never even heard of, but like Night Moves, American Pastoral, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, she has become America's favorite, like, spooky, like, blonde lady. Like, she plays like radicals and creeps and frightening people. Like, what? This is now her thing. Like,
it's very
Night
odd.
Moves, she's an eco-terrorist, and she doesn't share any scenes with Griffin Newman, but, you know. You were both in it.
A shame. An absolute shame.
American Pastoral, she is, you know, she's Sunny Lavov, right? She's the Mary, not Sunny. So, you know, the girl who basically joins the Weather Underground and blows something up.
And then she
Once
plays
Upon a Time in
fucking
Hollywood,
Squeaky
she's
Fromm.
Squeaky Fromm. And she's kind of good. She's kind of scary.
I think she's good.
She's
That's
got
a
these
good
like
scene.
big, scary kind of like empty eyes. Like
Yeah.
there's a shot where she's watching Alicia Keys make out. And I just remember thinking like if the music were any different, this would be like from a horror movie because she's just like sort of like in the bushes nearby.
It's just funny that is now her thing. It's just a funny little groove that she found for herself.
And I also like watching a movie like this, like Secret Life of Bees. I look at this performance and my takeaway is, wow, Dakota Fanning sure was very professional at that age. Like I keep on viewing these scenes as like a skill piece where I'm like, that's impressive that like someone this young did this. I don't know how engaging I find this performance, but it's clear that she's a very skilled actress on a technical level. And then those 3 later movies you're talking about all become like real vibe performances. Like the exact kind of thing she wasn't particularly good at as a child, where it's like she's just being very natural and sending out like a real energy.
She seems to be like more chill than she used to be, which I guess is usually the case. Like I always liked Dakota Fanning characters because they reminded me of like me as a kid. I was like that.
You were like a serious little child.
I was a very serious kid.
You were an uptown girl. You had you had no patience for the Cat in the Hat chicanery.
No, I was that kind of kid, so I really got her. And then, like, you know, she got older and she chilled out. I got older and I started smoking weed and I chilled out.
Maybe Dakota did too. I forgot to mention she's in that thing, The Alienist, which I don't watch, but I know some people enjoy The Alienist.
Now in season 2.
I've heard that people like that show.
What if there was an Alienist?
What channel? Wait, is that on Hulu?
No, it's on TNT.
It's a TNT show about like early criminal profiling, like vintage 19th century criminal profiling.
Do 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 do.
Is that Griffin? Is someone Zoom bomb? Wait, sorry, are you on this call?
Yeah, no, I'm here. Of course, I'm in this episode.
Okay. I thought you dropped out for a second.
No.
It seems like someone's crashing.
I was just confused. It's, of course, the sound of the Zoom bomb. We all know that when someone's trying to Zoom bomb an episode, it sounds like Skype, but it is still Zoom bombing. Ange,
yeah, it's very odd. It's just our computer.
You have
no one else.
Absolutely. You have a host permission. Can you allow this person in, please, Ange?
Yeah, hold on. Let me. There we go.
My, well, the prodigal son has returned.
Oh, no. And you can't see him because of all the glare at the front of his box. It's very bright. He's got a cellophane window at the front at the front of his box, and it's reflecting the light. Excuse me, can you jump around a little bit to rotate a little angle?
Oh, why, of course, sorry to be rude.
It's Stinky Pete. Ange, it's Stinky Pete, that slippery toy, the prospector from Toy Story 2, the finest American film ever made. And boy, I know why they call him Stinky Pete, because this is a video call, but I'm seeing some stink lines and some flies circling that box. Do you see that, Ange?
Yeah, it's very clear how very stinky he is right now.
Well, it's not my fault. I'm stuck in a box. I lived my entire life on a shelf, and I didn't even get to go to the museum in Japan.
Okay, Stinky Pete. Listen, we're all spending a lot of time stuck indoors. Maybe that's not the best for our odor. Maybe we're sort of stewing in our own sense these days. But I got some suggestion. Okay, here's a little hint. Hawthorne. Am I right, Ange?
I think Hawthorne would be a pretty good solution. I mean, you're a pretty ornery guy, Stinky Pete, but like this might cheer you up.
I just want to be attractive to people. Not in a sexual way. I just want to be a product that people buy.
Okay, we get it. Right. Look, the whole thing with Hawthorne is you can smell great with personalized premium quality ingredients, convenient, easy to buy online, luxurious packaging, which you must respect.
Of course, I'm the master of luxurious packaging. I've made my packaging my domain.
The other thing that's nice is it's shipped straight to your door. So you don't have to duck under a traffic cone and cross a street to try to steal some colognes. It's going to show up straight in Al's apartment or wherever you're I guess you're still with the little girl from the end of Toy Story 2.
I don't want to talk about it.
Listen, here's what you do. You take a quiz, okay? At this point, it should be old hat. We're all taking quizzes online every day, finding out which character you're like. But this quiz is telling you how you should smell. And then they send you some smells, and boy, are they good. And I'm doing the thing. I'm pouring some on my hands. I'm slapping it on my neck.
Yeah. I'm seeing some good smelling cartoon lines actually coming from you, Griffin.
Thank you. And here's another thing. Just makes you feel better, especially if you're staying at home, stewing in your own filth, getting all stinky.
Stuck in a box on a shelf.
Yes, we get it. Right. I'm saying our circumstances right now, Stinky Pete, in lockdown are a little bit similar to yours, but maybe it'll make things feel a little more normal if you slap a little scent on yourself. And Hawthorne doesn't just sell fragrances. They sell deodorant, shampoo, body wash, face cleanser, lotion, all this stuff. I've been using it. My whole shower's full of Hawthorne now. And I'm not talking about Chevy Chase's character from Community. I'm talking about high quality self-care products that make you smell good, feel clean, and also, I just want to underline this, they're personalized. You tell them what your problems are. Am I flaky? Am I oily? Am I dry? Do I struggle with this over this? And they go, don't worry, we got you. You're in safe hands.
Ah, much like the cleaner.
Yes, much like the cleaner who fixes Woody after his arm rips off. You are in safe hands.
How much would shipping be? Can Stinky Pete afford it? I don't know.
Yeah, Stinky Pete can afford it because it's totally risk-free with free shipping and free returns.
Ah.
Here's all it's going to...
Just like Al's Toy Barn, you can just take it right back if you don't want it.
Yeah, here's the real cost. 2 minutes of your time. You just take a quick 2-minute quiz. Hawthorne tells you the 2 colognes that are best for you, one for work and one for play, baby.
I wish I could be played with. Instead, I'm stuck up here on a shelf!
Well, that's your own fault, Stinky Pete.
Now, I got to get this out, okay, because this is mandatory. You got to check out Hawthorne at hawthorne.co.
How do you spell that, Griffin?
C-O! Co!
C-O, co? Okay.
Yeah, drop the M. It's cleaner. Okay? You use promo code CHECK, like the blankest of all promo codes, and you get 10%.
The checkest of most promo codes.
I guess that's a better way to say it, yes.
That would be more clear.
The way I said it was more confusing, correct. You get 10% off your first purchase. You go to hawthorne.co, and that's the end. Don't wait for the M because it's never going to hit. It's hawthorne.co, promo code CHECK for 10% off your purchase. That's hawthorne.co.
Bye, Stinky.
But The Alienist is also one of those things that like was a Cary Fukunawa project that he then abandoned and still happened anyway. Like it's in that exact time zone where it's like, okay, you know what? I'm not doing it anymore, but now I'm going to do this TV show. Actually, I'm not going to do this TV show anymore. I'm going to do this instead. Like he kept on.
Oh, was he supposed to do it?
Yes.
Yeah, he isn't a screenplay credit on
He
it.
still gets the screenplay credit, and apparently a lot of the designs are still things that Cary Fukunawa approved. Like, by all accounts, the Pennywise design in the movie is what he developed.
I really like the first It.
First It is good.
Jourdain,
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting. He apparently took it right up to the finish line. They became afraid that what he was doing was too avant-garde and not commercial enough. So he walked. They hire Muschietti.
Andy Muschietti, yeah.
He barely touches Fukunawa's script for the first movie, tries to put in more conventional scares. The movie's a huge hit. Then he apparently dramatically rewrites the second script, like throws it out. I think a lot of what's good in the first movie is what Cary Fukunawa developed.
The second movie sucks so hard.
And
it's
that's
so bad.
the movie that has none of his fingerprints on it anymore.
Yeah, I know. He's not credited as a screenwriter.
The second movie is one of the most. I actually walked out of the theater, and not because like I was offended by the movie, although like that
Was it because you'd been sitting in that theater for 8 hours and the movie wasn't done?
I got halfway through the movie, realized how much was left, realized how irritated I was that I was there, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm in Times Square. This is before they got rid of the Times Square Sephora, and like I'm gonna go to Sephora instead of finishing this movie.
Make a better use of a half hour of your time.
You missed 18 more flashbacks, so I'm sorry that you missed that.
And then just a couple days ago, I watched it at home, and like, it's just one of the most upsetting. Like, I thought on a smaller screen, I'd be less angry about it, because I watch all kinds of dumb shit. Like,
yeah.
Kyle gets so annoyed with me with the shit that I'll watch. Like, he'll come in and he's like, "What are you watching?" I'll be like, "Dead Heat," and he'll just like turn around and walk out. But I could not sit through It Part 2. Like, that's, I don't know why. I just didn't have the patience.
Can I give you my take
any of that
on why you couldn't put up with it? Because
Yeah.
it's the exact opposite of what you're talking about. It's a movie that should be owning sort of the trashiness of where it can go. And instead, it has this lofty self-importance of it's the final chapter in the It saga. And they're acting like it's It Endgame. Like they're acting like it's
there's been 40 It movies.
the culmination of 10 years and 20 movies. And you're like, dude, it's 1 2-hour movie that you're banking off of. Just wrap up the fucking story. You don't need to make this like
It's
a
the second
legacy.
part.
It's acting like it's a legacy sequel. Like, can you believe we got all the kids back together again?
Remember that
Balloon
trailer
trailers.
hit? You know, the
Which
cool
one?
trailer, the Chastain visiting the old lady.
The teaser is
scene.
so good for
when
that
she,
movie.
like,
You were like,
scooches by
oh
the
my
hall.
God. Yeah, this is great. Oh, this is so cool. And then, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Shitty movie. All right, moving on from Dakota Fanning. Is there another filmography you want to discuss, Griffin, next?
I mean, let's say like, okay, Alicia Keys, this is really her first movie. And I think people expected that she was going to have a film career. and she kind of just didn't. And I think she's good in this, and she was also in Smoking Aces, which she's cool in, and she's in the Nanny Diaries.
This.
Oh, you're right. This is kind of the last one.
Yeah.
It's Smoking Aces and Nanny Diaries in 2007. Nanny Diaries, she plays like the best friend role. Smoking Aces, she plays a cool assassin. For a long time, when the Y the Last Man movie was supposed to be made with DJ Caruso and Shia LaBeouf, she was supposed to play... I'm forgetting her name.
The
Agent 100? Yeah.
No, it's not 100. It's like...
355. She was announced as playing 355. And then she does this movie, which felt like her big sort of like, oh, now she's making a prestige movie. And then she doesn't really act that much ever again.
The only performance she's given since is playing Alicia Keys in Gem and the Holograms.
And she was on Empire and stuff.
She did pop up on Empire. I mean, she's done some TV maybe, but no, she pivoted to like reality TV. Like she did the X Factor. She did I feel like she did another, right? She does another
The Voice?
of the Voice. Yeah, like she's all in on that now. I feel like that eats up so much of your time.
I'll say she's also
like hosted the Grammys,
shows.
I think.
Yeah.
She's produced a lot, both like on film and TV and on Broadway. Like she produces a lot of other people's works. But I think she's good in this. Like I remember being excited at the time that it felt like she was going to become a movie star, that she was going to have a sort of Janelle Monáe like split career and keep doing both. Because she's a good actress and she's very innately engaging.
She's really good. It's weird. I never think about Alicia Keys anymore. That's such an interesting thing. Like I watched her in this movie and I was like, oh yeah, fuck. She was in movies for like a second.
Yeah.
And like now I mostly just know her as that weirdo on Instagram. Like she's
like, I don't wear makeup. I'm just amazingly beautiful all the time.
She's very into not wearing makeup. I know this, right? Like that's her thing now.
The most notable thing that she has done, in my opinion, since this movie is break up Swiss Beats' marriage. Like that was a big one. She was in the headlines a lot for that. Like
she's very cool in this movie, which makes sense because that's her vibe. She's good at that. She's like, I would not say it's a one-note performance, but it's sort of like she's got a lot of poise and presence, and she's like a cool and magnetic figure.
Yeah, right?
I liked her. I thought that the Nate Parker of it all, man. Every single time I see him, I was like, "Fuck, you're still in movies."
I know.
Man.
Well, this is I guess the beginning. Like this is where
his relationship with Gina.
Right, where she finds him, and this is before Red Tails. Like what had he been in before this? The Great Debaters, I guess that's
right.
His
that was sort of his discovery movie.
I don't even remember the first place that I saw Nate Parker, because for a while I did like him. I mean, I didn't have any reason not to like him before.
I know. Yeah. It's the one thing I dread about rewatching Beyond the Lights.
Yeah.
He did Pride, which is that swimming movie that I've never seen.
Right.
The Great Debaters. Yeah, I've never seen The Great Debaters either.
I think he's the main kid in The Great Debaters.
He's the main debater in the film. You have like Denzel as the captain, the teacher. You have Forrest Whitaker as the disapproving parent. And then Nate Parker is sort of giving the like anointment role. Like it very much feels like that movie is Denzel saying like, I'm saying that this is a guy. And I'm giving him a spotlight, and I, Denzel, am trying to put the focus on this dude. And then people start putting him in movies. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the stuff with him and her, I was so like, I just felt like there was a piece missing. Like, I get it. She doesn't want to marry him or whatever, but like, why doesn't she want to marry him? It's never really like, was it like supposed to be
got cut out of the movie or something? There's definitely something not there.
Because, like, I guess it's like she wanted her independence or something. Like, I'm not really sure. I also, like, in my head canon, I was like, oh, maybe she's gay. And then she says, and then she accepts it anyway. I don't know. She had a lot of gay vibes from her. I kind of wanted her to be gay.
Absolutely. And in Smoking Aces, she's gay. She plays, like, a very cool gay assassin who I believe is maybe in a relationship with Taraji P. Henson. They're like, gay couple assassins. But it's a good performance. But all the special features I watched, they talked about how much difficulty they had adapting this character, and they keep on talking about likability in this sort of like standard Hollywood kind of way. But I think it's because they were like, we're worried that the character feels like kind of a buzzkill. She's the only one who doesn't want Dakota Fanning moving in, and she's the one who's kind of uptight, and she keeps on rejecting this guy's marriage proposals. And so it seems like their solution to making her likable is sort of making her comedically heightened and treating all the proposals like they're Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown. But it also makes it feel like it's just like a sketch comedy routine until she finally inexplicably goes like, nah, I'm gonna marry you.
No, I don't even understand it because he calls her a bitch. I was like, oh, game
that
over,
seems
bro.
kind of weird. But that's the other thing. Again, you're like, wait, whoa, wait. What is going on with these two? And then he's out of the movie for a while. And then like by the time he comes back, I'd almost forgotten the plot. Like, I don't know.
Like, I feel like if a guy, like, it would have made sense if she was just gay, because it's like, oh, he calls her a selfish bitch, and it's like, okay, well, obviously he's not coming back, and obviously she can't say, hey, I'm gay. Like, that's just me. That's what I would have done. It would have fixed everything, in my opinion.
That's how I would have read the movie.
Yeah.
Yes. And it would have made it a little more interesting.
And it would explain why she's so, I mean, like...
She's right. She's sort of closed up. She's right. She doesn't want to talk about her feelings in the same, but also like she's sort of like this opposite, you know, June and May are like sort of right. Like, you know, May is so emotive and she's so, you know, like all her emotions are right on the surface. So June's kind of like very sublimated. For a movie about a bunch of people hanging out in a house and learning about each other, you don't learn a lot about a lot of the characters in the movie.
She has like an NAACP shirt, and I think she says something about a meeting, but then it's just like never addressed again.
I think she wears that shirt at 4 different points in the movie, like 4 different timeline points in the movie. They keep on wanting to sort of just like code in without having to devote screen time to it. The idea that she's like a leader and an organizer and all this sort of stuff. But you only get it through seeing her t-shirt while she walks out and goes like, excuse me, I'm trying to practice my music.
Boy, let's talk about Latifah. Let's go and talk about Queen Latifah. Because she is still, you know,
this
just
is
a
her
few
movie
years from her
run.
Oscar nomination.
Yes.
And this is sort of like in the run with like Taxi, Beauty Shop, Last Holiday, right? Like those movies where she is above the title and she's the lead. She's the top billed performer.
Right.
Yeah. She's above Dakota Fanning or anyone else.
She's first billed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chicago comes out in 2002. She gets an Oscar nomination. Everyone's like, fuck, Queen Latifah, who at this point has already proven herself as an actress. She's great in Set It Off. She did multiple seasons of Living Single, right?
Yeah. Come on. She's a legend. Living Single.
Yes.
She's actually amazing in Set It Off, obviously. Like that. Yeah. She's...
Yeah, one of my favorite movie deaths is her death in that movie.
She rules in that. And she's been, yes, I mean, you look at her filmography and she's like, it's very predictable that it's like, she's been acting regularly throughout the 90s, giving good performances. And you're like, okay, she's in Jungle Fever, House Party 2, Juice. She's in Set It Off. She's in Hoodlum. She's in Living Out Loud, right? Then she starts to like transition into white Hollywood. Then you get like Sphere, The Bone Collector, Bringing Out the Dead. Then she gets the Chicago Oscar nomination, and people were like, who knew Queen Latifah could act? And it's like, motherfucker, she's been acting for 12 years.
She's been acting for a really long time.
What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
She's great in Sphere.
I was actually just on the Bechtel cast talking about Set It Off, so people should listen to that episode. I talk a lot about Queen Latifah in that one.
I listened to that episode. Great podcast, great episode.
She gets, isn't she the one who gets eaten by the jellyfish or it's the jellyfish in Sphere.
Yeah.
Sphere's a great movie. We should do Sphere. Let's do Sphere cast.
I've never seen this Sphere. Okay.
It's Mary Levinson, right?
Listen, what if there was a Sphere? What if it was under the water? What's up with the sphere? You gotta find out. Only 4 people can find out. Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, Samuel L. Jackson, Queen Latifah. They're going to go look at the sphere. All kinds of things are going to happen. There's going to be jellyfish. No one's going to have a good time. The movie will be critically reviled and a box office bomb. It's incredibly long and it's great. I love it.
Sounds like The Abyss.
It's very Abyss.
From the director of Rain Man comes a sci-fi movie that asks, what would Dustin Hoffman and Sharon Stone do in space together?
Except they're underwater.
But Queen Latifah, right?
Yeah.
So
fantastic actress.
Right. Overnight white Hollywood discovery. Who knew? Now she has this run as like a leading movie star where it's Bringing Down the House comes out right after her Oscar nomination. Is the biggest fucking hit in the world. Is so humongous.
No, we can't. I mean, we've talked about it before, but please go ahead, Jourdain.
Bringing Down the House.
Let's bring down the house for a second.
One of the worst movies ever made.
It's not a good movie.
It's a movie that has puzzled me for years. Like, I have seen Bringing Down the House so many times, and every single time I'm just like, what?
You see, he's very uptight.
Yes, I don't think you're getting
and he's
it,
lonely.
Yes.
And she was in prison and she learned all kinds of things. I believe she has broken out of prison in that movie, right? It's not like she's been released. Like, I think she's like escaped.
No, I think
like
she's been
trying
released.
to prove her innocence.
Oh, she is. Right. You're right. And Jourdain, I don't want to mansplain Bring It Down the House for you, but the thing you need to understand, because it's subtle, and a lot of people don't get it when they watch the movie, is that Eugene Levy is in Bring It Down the House, and Queen Latifah has him straight tripping, boo.
That's right.
Okay.
But that's subtext. That's subtext.
So Eugene Levy in that movie, I think about him constantly. Like, when I don't know why. Like, when I just think about, like, sometimes when I say the word white people, I'm thinking about Eugene Levy in Bringing Down the House.
That was certainly
those cornrows.
Yeah, that's what he was going for. I guess he was like, I will be white people.
He was 100% white. I actually really appreciate how much he committed to being like, man, aren't white people stupid? It's just like, wow.
Right. You know, the man has a satirical eye. Yeah, sure.
But I also kind of wanted to, that movie, I kind of want to do it on Bad Romance just because of how it's set up to be like a rom-com and then it's not.
Yes.
Because like, the world just could not imagine Steve Martin and Queen Latifah, but it's like a rom-com without the sex. Like, she like comes in and changes his life, but like then they don't fuck.
And they meet from being like on an online dating website. Like, the premise that's set up is he thinks they're gonna date.
But she ends up with Eugene Levy. He gets back together with Jean Smart, I believe, who is like
Queen
his
Latifah
estranged
fixes
wife
his
or
marriage.
whatever. Right. Yes.
Yeah, Queen Latifah fixes his white marriage because, you know, God forbid.
Well,
She has everyone straight
gotta bring
tripping,
down
boo.
the house. I don't know.
But then here's the big, like, post-Oscar, post-Bringing Down the House, Queen Latifah has the keys to Hollywood run. Then you get Taxi. She has a small part in The Cookout, which she produces. Then she has the cameo in Barbershop 2, which is only to establish backdoor beauty shop spinoff. Like, they announce in Variety, Queen Latifah will be appearing in Barbershop 2 solely to launch a spinoff film. So then it's Beauty Shop, Stranger Than Fiction, where she's supporting, but that's like the hottest screenplay in Hollywood. She's the new main character in Ice Age.
No,
Last Holiday.
Okay, Last Holiday. She's great in Last Holiday. I haven't seen that movie in years. That's sort of an odd movie, though, because it's like, it's about her dying. Like, Hollywood would never make a movie like that anymore. That's sort of like weird and melancholy and like presented as a romantic comedy drama. Is it her...
And LL Cool J.
Who's her love interest? LL Cool J, right?
Right. And you're remaking an Alec Guinness comedy, right?
Is it? Oh, is it? Wait, really?
Yes, I think it is.
You know, you're right. It is. Yes. It's an old British
like
film.
an obscure British comedy.
Yeah.
Then Hairspray, which she's very good in.
Yeah.
She's great in Hairspray.
And then this is when she starts to slow down again. It's like she does Mad Money, which doesn't exist.
Mad Money didn't really work out for anyone
I love
involved.
Mad Money.
Really?
Though.
Really?
I really do.
You're
love
a Mad Money fan?
I watched it for the first time this year, and I was just like, oh my God, why have I never watched this before? I like Mad Money in the sense that, like, they are very aware of, like, the class differences and the race differences in it. I don't know. I thought it was really smart. I thought it could be way worse than it was.
They're stealing money that is going to be, like, destroyed, right? Like, it's like they're going to steal money that is about to expire, essentially, right?
Diane Keaton, Katie Holmes, Queen Latifah. I forgot it's written and directed by Callie Curry, who did Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
Did the screenplay for Thelma and Louise, yeah.
Yeah.
Queen Latifah is great in Mad Money. Like, she's way better than everyone else in that movie because she's taking it seriously.
I mean, she was a great, like, comedy movie star. She had this run, and she would do, like, supporting roles in between. And I think she's a very good dramatic actress as well. But she had this surprisingly fertile run as, like, a leading comedy lady. And then now...
You got just right. Well, just the tail end of the sort of thing you're talking about,
right,
I think. Because
now
like
she starts to transition more into, like, ensemble. So after Mad Money, what happens in Vegas is a very small role. Secret Life of Bees, she's first billed. You get a sense that she was the person they needed to get the financing for the movie. Like, she's really sort of extending herself, playing a role that was written for an older actress because her movie stardom's so big at the time. And then it's like Valentine's Day ensemble, just writes her sort of last lead. Dilemma is supporting. And then it's like 2 years until Joyful Noise, which is her and Dolly Parton. And then she doesn't really do a big movie role again until Girls Trip 5 years later.
I believe Joyful Noise, is that like a choir versus choir movie?
Yeah.
It's like a Bring It On with choirs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, no, that's what it is. But she does there's like a 5-year gap pretty much there where it's like, small role in 22 Jump Street, tiny role in Miracles from Heaven, another Ice Age movie, and Girls Trip. And that's all that happens between Joyful Noise and Girls Trip.
You're forgetting Bessie. Where she played Bessie Smith, which was a TV movie, but it was, written and directed by Dee Reese.
I love Bessie.
Pretty good movie.
Yeah.
She was nominated for an Emmy, I guess. But, but she's good in that. And that seemed like sort of passion project-y for her.
And she does Steel Magnolias for TV, and she does Star.
She did that show Star.
She's great in Steel Magnolias, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen Star.
She kind of just pivots to TV, and then now she was supposed to, before the pandemic, I think it's still happening, but obviously they never were able to really start production, and they can't yet. She's supposed to do a reboot of The Equalizer for CBS.
That's right.
With her playing The Equalizer.
Yeah.
Which I so badly wanted to play the computer nerd on. I think you remember, David. I was losing my mind. It was like the only pilot that I was like, I would love to do this.
You would love to play the role that they're always telling you, like, to right? Like, I feel like computer nerd you often avoid because it's like, been there, done that a little bit.
But there were 3 X factors. 1, films in New York. I was like, great, right? 2, I have heard such great things about Queen Latifah. Like, just her fucking professionalism on set and her decency as a human being. I was like, man, I would love to work on a show where Queen Latifah is the star and the producer, and presumably bullshit will not fly and no one will be an asshole.
Remember, she also had a talk show. I forgot about that. She did that for a year.
Number 3, it was a better written computer nerd than most of those shows. Sure. But that's what she's supposed to do now. She's supposed to do The Equalizer for CBS.
Could I talk about Bessie one more time?
Please.
Okay, so Bessie is one of those movies where I'm a huge fan of Bessie. I wrote about it. I'm obsessed with it. Mostly just because it's one of the few movies where, like, Black women are gay. Like, it's just the fact that if it had been theatrically released, I feel like her film career would have jump started. But instead it's on HBO, where I feel like not a lot of people watched it. And it's like, we have Queen Latifah being mentored by Monique, and no one is talking about it. I think Monique's great in it.
And Monique so rarely acts too. So like, it was genuinely exciting.
It is. And Monique is Monique maybe kind of makes the movie, because the movie, I love the movie. I think it's great. Monique, I think, is what stops it from being like as sad as it could be, because she's such like an interesting like presence in the film. I feel like you know what I mean, since you actually watched it.
Yes, I just love her. I know, I don't know like why Monique doesn't make a lot of movies. I'm sure there's a lot of things going into that, but like anytime I see her in a movie, it is. I was just looking at Monique's.
She delivers.
Recent films, Almost Christmas, Blackbird. Like anytime she pops up in something, she's great. But yes, she's playing Ma Rainey and Bessie. She's very funny. She's very, I don't know, intense. How to describe Monique?
Yeah, she's like very intense. Anyway, I just need anyone who's listening to this to please watch Bessie.
Yeah, Bessie.
Yeah, I would assume it's on HBO, Max or whatever, right? It has to be.
I mean, was this before or after we started recording where we were talking about Native Son and how that also fell into like an HBO black hole that I feel like...
Yeah, this was during recording,
The Tale also fell into that.
I was just complaining about like how great The Tale is and how few people know about it. I need to just make a list of just like HBO movies that are great. Like Bad Education is there now. I'm just like, I want people to watch Bad Education.
Right. It's one of those things where I feel like it's like, if you have made a small movie like The Tale or Bad Education or Native Son, and HBO comes knocking and they're like, we're going to pay you $10 million for the rights. Like, it's so hard to say no, because it's like, look, this means that everyone makes their money and like... everyone is made whole and the movie will get seen. But like it sadly does kind of like sweep it into a category of movies that get kind of ignored. Like The Tale should have been one of the big movies, like critically, of 2018.
Right.
And it wasn't.
Like it played at Sundance and everyone was like, fuck, Laura Dern might win the Oscar for this. And then it just went to TV and no one really engaged with it. And I feel like very often HBO will pay big money, and it's also the promise of, we're going to put all our energy behind this. Like if a studio releases this, they might release it on 4 screens, and it might be one of 20 movies they have this Oscar season. We'll give this like a real star berth. But it feels like it's very often movies that either are viewed as difficult subject matter or unconventional subject matter. And it's just
the kind of mid-budgety movie where it's like, well, how are we making this pop? Right?
Now,
I don't know.
This is kind of the point I want to make by going through Latifah. Here you have this person who is like a very prominent pop culture figure for 20 years, right? Like in the 90s, sitcom star, incredibly successful music star, and then is starring in like a lot of canonically important black films. Then the 2000s, she like goes over into mainstream Hollywood, is a comedy star, is ensemble, gets an Oscar nomination, like does all these big things. And then it feels like in the late 2000s, she goes like, okay, I have passion projects that I want to make. I want to play Bessie Smith. I want to do Steel Magnolias. And Hollywood's like, yeah, you should go to TV. Like it was.
Yeah. Don't you want to be the next Ellen?
Right.
Maybe she did. I mean, maybe she did for all I know.
But it does feel like she like tried to cash in her capital on these like big passion projects, and they were like, you're not really a movie star anymore. And she doesn't really get to be in movies again until she plays the 4th lead in Girls Trip, which she's very good at.
Yeah, but it is weird because like just like thinking about Steel Magnolias and Bessie, which are both like really, really good. She's really great.
She's
in
great
Steel
in
Magnolias. And Steel Magnolias is actually like one of the best casted remakes I've ever seen.
It had Jill Scott,
everyone works.
Who else was in it?
Jill Scott. I'm
Alfre Woodard.
Alfre Woodard is in there. Yeah, like it's great.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like there's not room for that kind of black movie on the big screen right now, and I can't say why that is.
The huge problem of just like so many kinds of movies that we are fondly recalling as we speak right now just don't seem to be able to exist in cinemas anymore, which is very frustrating. Like, I don't know if Secret Life of Bees exists in 2020. Does it? Like, maybe.
I like a straight to Netflix situation.
Probably, right? Like, I know they still make bestseller, to movie trend. Like, but like, I'm not sure. Yeah, it probably is a TV movie now or a miniseries or something.
I mean, what? The Help is 4 years after this and is a box office juggernaut and is also a steaming pie of poop. It is a garbage movie, but that it feels like watching this movie, you kind of have to compare it to The Help.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Right. The difference, the helpful difference is like, at least Dakota Fanning is a child. Like, at least her being astonished by these things is a little more believable in The Help, where fucking Emma Stone's like a time traveler, and you're like, where have you been, woman? You're a grown ass person. Like, why are you behaving this way?
But also, it's like, at least, this gets sound perverse the way I say it, but like, at least the Dakota Fanning character has her own struggles in this movie and bonds with other women over, like, you know, the common sort of disenfranchisement they feel with the world, rather than The Help, where Emma Stone's like, this, like, I can use this to become a very successful writer. I can like exploit other people's suffering. Yes, I'm very aware of that. But that movie is like a lot more is a lot less interested in the interior lives of The Help, despite being the title of the fucking film.
Secret Life of Bees is kind of like, you know what? You know, if you just hang out with the black people, you know, they're much cooler. They're much more chill. They have better. It's mostly because, like, in the end, she's just like living with these black women,
right.
And it's just like the idea is that like her life is going to be so much better because she is living with those black women, which I think is an interesting thing that they don't really like lean into more. This idea that like everybody in the movie that is terrible is white except for her.
That is the juice to this movie for me, is as a hangout movie, is this weird 60s, like, we got this one pink house where everything is pretty cool as long as we're staying within these walls.
They have a line about how it's like kind of cut off from the rest of the world, and I know the same things don't happen inside the house, but it reminded me of Mother. You really don't see any of the world outside of it, to the point where you're like, is she dead? Like, it's just like so heavenly and perfect.
Right, exactly. Did she just arrive, right? Like, did she actually fall down a hill and die?
Yeah.
Just imagine.
Like, I just love that, like, when they're have the whole dinner scene, there are all those black women, including the one who's like, we haven't even talked about Tristan Wildes yet, but I noticed that Tristan Wildes' mother is played by the actress who played LaFonda in Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, Chandrella Avery, I believe. Those scenes, and then like the church scene where it's like they have like reordered how they approach these things. Like they don't do it like however they're supposed to do it, and that's
right.
They've made their own community.
Their house almost feels like Brigadoon, but it's a time portal to a future that we still haven't achieved.
Yeah, it's like people are visiting and it's like this like oasis, and like Tristan Wildes is coming in and he's chilling, and I still don't know why Tristan Wildes is there or what he's doing, especially because like what is his point in this movie?
Making honey.
I mean, it's nice to see him.
Yeah,
it's nice to see him. I remember when he was on The Wire.
There was another thing on the special features that really jumped out to me, where Gina was talking about trying to like find her into the material. She also said that like they offered her this right in like 2002 or 2003. And as she said many times, and we've talked about on this podcast, after doing Disappearing Acts and Love and Basketball back to back, she was super burned out and is like, I want to wait a while before I make my next movie. So she said they sent it to her and she just left it in her closet for 3 years and didn't even look at it until like 2006. Or 2005. But she said when she read it, what she was interested in was she was talking to her husband, Reggie Bythewood, and his parents grew up in the South during the Civil Rights Movement, and she was asking them what it was like, and they said, well, it was interesting because it was this time of great upheaval, and there was a lot of awfulness going on, but there was also a sense of hope. But I feel like the thing that people don't talk about is we were still just living our lives on a day-to-day basis. Like movies about that time tend to make it seem like everything that was going on was incredibly politically sort of like loaded, when in fact we were like eating food and we were falling in love and we were tending to our gardens, and like life does continue in all these very dramatic times. A thing that I think we're all experiencing right now, where it like feels like the world is on fire. And yet there are things we do on a day-to-day basis that have some sense of normalcy, even if they're tinged with the awareness of what's going on at the world at large. And that's sort of like, I feel like the movie that Gina's really into is like, can you have this house that almost feels like a sci-fi conceit where like life progresses one step at a time and these small gestures have like huge implications, but then you step outside of the house and like you get arrested at a movie theater. You know?
Yeah.
They don't even talk about like, let's sit together when we get to the, you know what I mean? Like you just see them.
Yeah.
Doing it. But there's the dynamic that August talks about with Lily at the end when they're sort of sharing, you know, when they're finally talking about her mom, where she's like, I was your mom's maid, like I was her nanny, right? You know,
I think
like
that scene kind of rules.
That scene's good. And she's like, and that's a dynamic I did not want to repeat, right? You know, they're sort of talking about like, you know, this needed to be different. That's why I didn't tell you about this. And so many times in movies like this, there's that scene where it's like, well, I didn't tell you because you just weren't ready, which really just means like, because we needed to have this scene later in the movie. But like that conversation makes a lot of sense. Like when they finally have it and sort of open up to each other.
I also think that scene is so well written and so well acted from Latifah's vantage point, which is like, she takes that pause. I mean, what Dakota Fanning asked her, like, did you love my mother? And Latifah sort of says, like, I mean, I loved her, like, with qualifiers.
Right.
She's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
In another version of this movie, you'd expect that that's all they'd say about it and brush past it. And Latifah, like, unpacks it. And she's like, look, it's an incredibly unbalanced relationship. That's not something that is conducive to an honest form of love. You know, we were so unequal that despite me feeling probably some sort of sense of like maternal love for her, it was wrapped up in this really like contradictory relationship.
Yeah, she can order her around. Like, yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of the fact that at the end of the movie, she ends up sort of claiming mothership of the Dakota Fanning character, because that is actually closer to a mother-daughter relationship rather than this weird transactional, like forced indentured like job sort of relationship, you know?
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. I mean, there's like a lot of interesting threads.
While you were talking, I was just thinking about imitation of life and like, what if? Yeah, it's like there's so many like interesting dynamics, and like that one, I'm not one of those people that thinks that like old movies are better, but I do think that like they were a bit more curious about this stuff. Like they were like a lot of the curiosity led in like to bad directions and weird directions and, you know, problematic directions. But I don't know, there's just like a little bit more curiosity of like, how is this going to work, Black people and white people together? What are we doing? And that scene with them talking about that relationship made me think of that.
I think like Hollywood used to be a lot more interested in making what they would call issues pictures and being like, there is a thing, there is a discourse going on in our culture, and we need to make a film that unpacks it. And that unpacking would usually be a series of very complicated conversations between actors. And it feels like more and more Hollywood has advanced or rather sort of digressed to wanting to make films that are just kind of like, this is what happened in the past and we solved it, book closed.
Well, this came out like a month before Obama's elected president. Like I was watching an interview with Alicia Keys and she was like, and I sure hope he's elected. And you're like, oh, wow, there was like a time frame when we weren't sure that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it just feels like this movie is like of that time where it's just kind of focused on the hope of that.
The behind the scenes stuff, they're talking a lot about living through the Bush era and the disenfranchisement of the Bush era. And like, once again, having this incredible distrust of our country. But I do think, yeah, Jourdain, like we've moved beyond wanting to make films in a Hollywood studio level that really engage with difficult conversations
Yeah, because like a lot of films now, like it's almost like the assumption is that they're made on the assumption that everyone who is watching the movie is progressive.
Yes.
Or at least knows what that means. And so we don't really have to, like, we don't have to explain how this is bad or why this is bad. Or we just said it was bad and it was then. And there were these people who fought. And it's just like, I find it to be a very, very boring.
Well,
very
and there's
boring.
the character like who's like, well, I'm the racist, you know, like they're like, right.
Yes.
Like there's the movie and then there's the one character's like, some people are like, oh, well, I approve of this progress. And then other characters like, well, I don't approve at all.
Right.
I'm the villain now. And that's
The
who
Sam
I'm going to
Rockwell
be
and
here.
the Kevin Costner.
Right.
Yeah. The Secret Life of Bees, above all else, I think is a movie about learning, right? It's a movie about learning about your past, about your family. It's a movie
About bees.
well, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you, Ange, for helping me out here. First and foremost, it is a movie about beekeeping, right? It's about learning about those bees. And it's topical because one of our sponsors today on this episode is Masterclass. And so I thought, oh, Masterclass, you take these online master classes. I mean, the name, it's almost, what more do I need to say? I'm going to say a lot more because they bought an ad, but it's, a website where you can learn from the world's best minds anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. It's ideal classes from masters of their forms online at a time where, colleges are asking you to pay full tuition for Zoom classes. Why not take online classes from some of the best in the biz? So, like, for example, I'm looking here at Masterclass. Let's see who teaches their beekeeping class, okay?
Griffin, are you telling me I can learn how to keep bees on the internet?
No, I was actually wrong about that. There isn't a beekeeping class. But look at all these great classes they have instead. Joyce Carol Oates teaches the art of the short story. Aaron Franklin teaches Texas-style barbecue. Anna Wintour teaches creativity and leadership. Werner Herzog teaches filmmaking. Usher teaches the art of performance. All these things came up when I typed in bees.
Griffin, does that mean that Werner Herzog can teach me how to depressingly narrate a penguin walking off to his death?
Almost certainly, Ange. And maybe...
Good, that's what I want.
That's what we all need right now. Maybe the bees were a non-starter, but look at these other classes I discovered by searching for bees. So there must be someone who teaches a class on secrets, right? Because that's the other thing this movie's about is secrets. So let me look for secrets. Okay,
I got to learn how to keep secrets, Griffin.
There is no secret class. But look at these other things I discovered instead. Serena Williams teaches tennis. Judd Apatow teaches comedy. Christina Aguilera teaches singing. And oh my God, Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Codester himself, teaches writing thrillers, and part 19 is the secrets of secrets. So there is a little secret class.
That sounds like a good one. You know who would like that? My dad. Honestly, I really would recommend that to my dad. He loves him some Dan Brown.
Yeah, right on, Ange. Bobby Brown teaches makeup and beauty. Oh, is that really relevant? Yeah, we're all on Zoom all the time. You got to look at your own damn face while you're talking, whether it's business or pleasure. You should learn some stage makeup. I know that isn't technically what she's teaching, but you could probably apply those skills. Look, it's a great thing to watch in quarantine. It makes you feel like you're being productive and learning and interacting. And they're long. You get to really bathe in them. You feel like you're part of a class. All these classes are like a master with a bunch of students. So you're watching the process. It's not just someone monologuing to you. I like it. It feels good. It's enjoyable. And I highly recommend that you go check it out. Okay? You get unlimited access to every masterclass when you sign up. And as a Blank Check listener, you're going to get 15% off on an annual membership. Yeah. 15% off on an annual membership. So go to masterclass.com/check. That's masterclass.com/check for 15% off Masterclass. Because it's not necessary to sit down and consume a full class start to finish. You can learn 10 minutes at a time. You can break this thing off, dare I say it, bite-sized entertainment.
This is only like maybe 10 tangentially related, but I recently watched Charles Burnett's The Glass Shield.
Great movie.
It's about a black cop who he becomes a cop because he wants to be a hero, and basically finds out, oh, it's impossible to be a hero. I feel like The Glass Shield is a movie about how being a cop is just inherently bad, and there's nothing that you can do to fix it.
It's much more about him being told you have to abide by the rules of the brotherhood of policing, right? Which is essentially whatever we do, no snitching, and we're allowed to behave the way we want, over whatever idealistic notions you had of being I believe he's supposed to be the first black deputy at the sheriff's department, right? He's supposed to, he's a milestone figure.
Yeah, and I was watching that, and then I was thinking about BlacKkKlansman, a movie that I do not like, and it basically has a very similar kind of setup, but then it goes there are the bad cops, and there are the good cops, sure. And you can choose to be a good cop. And that's how you fix it, that's kind of how I feel about films from 2008 on, where that's the kind of attitude. It's just there are the good people and they're over there, and you just have to be over there where the good people are. Whereas if we're watching the Glass Shield, actually I was, stirred intellectually by a film. It made me think about dynamics. You know what I mean?
It's a good movie. I like that movie a lot. I mean, I think Spike Lee's great cop movie is Inside Man, because that movie is very upfront about everything terrible about the NYPD, while still being I am delivering you a really slick, fun, heist movie. But it makes, it has all those sequences where the weird industry of the NYPD is being deployed, the fences, the machinery, the vehicles, they're hassling anyone coming out of the building, all that stuff that's just kind of bubbling away. BlacKkKlansman, I feel he got so hung up on the story, right? The Ron Stallworth story. And I don't know. I like BlacKkKlansman. Okay.
I have a handful of things I want to say. I mean, one is, I remember during the BlacKkKlansman Oscar campaign season, when everyone was oh my God, Spike's finally made a movie that's gonna cross over at the Oscars.
Sure.
I remember talking to a publicist who was part of the BlacKkKlansman team at a cocktail party, and she was saying to other people in the industry who had not watched BlacKkKlansman, no, you don't understand. This movie's actually for white people. That was kind of their selling point on the movie at the time, which ties into what you're saying, Jourdain, and also talking about the way that race relations are often dealt with in major films now, which is movies to make liberals feel good. Movies in which there are very clear cut, these people are good, these people are bad, and the journey of the movie is watching the good people succeed over the bad people, and you get to feel good because you knew that the good people were good all along and the bad people were bad. They're very sort of self-serving to the audience. I think BlacKkKlansman is probably the best of those types of movies.
Yes, I will say that. Yes,
but it still is
he's
that
an
box.
He's an exciting filmmaker, even if you're not into the movie.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Da 5 Bloods is so much more interesting and fraught to me, and the way it's discussing all these weird racial dynamics, in a way that also I see the movie being misinterpreted a lot. But I think that's because it's a complicated text, whereas BlacKkKlansman is so cut and dry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, BlacKkKlansman, there are scenes that I really like the one where they're all dancing and
yes.
all of the flourishes stuff I enjoy. But yeah, and I will, because I was I think about Secret Life of Bees, which is the exact kind of movie that I would never want to watch, simply because of how kind of cut and dry things are, but but as a hangout movie, it actually works much better.
It works. Yeah,
there's some good hangouts. I mean, there are good hangs in The Secret Life of Bees, and Making Honey seems fun. and the beekeeping scenes, of which there are not enough, are weird.
Not enough bees in this movie.
They're a great metaphor, right? Because it's like, here we are in this incredibly, like, you know, like it's very tense. It's sort of dangerous. There's bees flying around, but like it's also sort of serene. Like she's approaching it in this very methodical and like, you know, knowledgeable manner. And like there's no fear because they're in this nice community that they built for themselves, but it's still like an intense and scary place. And like I dug all the bee stuff. Bees are cool. Like
bees are cool.
Queen Latifah, like just sort of like telling me about queen bees. I'm like, yeah, I could do like a, you know, like a sort of like Planet Earth mini series length of that. Like that would be great. So I was, could have done with more bees. That's maybe my biggest complaint about this movie.
Not enough bees. Oh, we haven't really talked much about Sophie Okonedo.
Yes. Okay. I was going to say, I feel like we briefly have to touch on her and Bettany. So this is like Sophie Okonedo, who has been around forever, is like a great British actress, did a lot of stage and TV, does Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, where she plays the princess, you know, but then doesn't really have a breakout until like Dirty Pretty Things in 2002 and then Hotel Rwanda in 2004. She doesn't do that many movies from 1991 to 2004. And then she gets a surprise Oscar nomination for Hotel Rwanda, very deserved. Then she has like a run of a couple kind of like post-Oscar nomination paycheck roles. Aeon Flux, which I feel like I need to watch now. She's like the wise... I don't know. What does she play in it? Because both her and Frances McDormand seem to be playing like omniscient leader characters, right? I
don't know. I have never. Yeah, we should do Kusama.
I just think every element of that movie is fascinating, and it was written off at the time, and now I feel like I need to watch it because I'm like, I like Kusama, I like Charlize Theron doing action, but then this is like 2008. This is 4 years after Rwanda. I feel like everyone's pegging her as like, this is the big Oscar-y performance. This is the key supporting role. This is like the most classically Oscar-y character. And I can't figure out what I think of this performance.
Yeah, I don't, you know, when I was on this podcast before and we had to talk about the Tandy
I was about to say it is similar. It's a similar fine line thing.
Okay, here's the thing though. I think that Sophie does like a better job than Tandy Newton in keeping this character reined in.
I think so too. Yeah.
But I still don't understand her. Like, she's a very mysterious character to me.
well, she's sort of oddly defined where it's like, this is sort of a woman post breakdown. They try to make it seem like, rather than someone who was born developmentally disabled in any sort of way.
I was hoping they would say, I don't know, maybe it says it in the book, like how her sister died. It seemed, the way I kind of chose to see it for it to make sense was that basically she was like developmentally stunted in a way, or emotionally kind of stunted when she went through such an awful thing as like the loss of a sister and the loss of like a twin.
Well, but they talk about it, like unpack it a little bit, in that her relationship with her sister was so symbiotic, which I feel like is often the case with twins at a young age. I mean, you hear all these stories about twins having their own sort of secret language. You know, it's often like parents of twins have a hard time teaching them to speak because twins figure out how to communicate with each other in a way that is not conventionally verbal. So it's the idea that like they're so bonded, she's perhaps a more empathetic person to begin with, and that, you know, she has this sort of breakdown after her sister dies, this sort of like post-traumatic breakdown, and that they bring her to all these doctors who can't diagnose what's wrong with her, but just want to institutionalize her. And so they have like foregone any sort of institutionalization, and tried to figure out how to like teach May to cope on her own. But it is very much this kind of classic, like, Oscar-y, you're playing someone who is sort of childlike and sees the world differently performance with a lot of affectation. I feel like she does it better than most. But much like Jourdain, you're saying this is the exact type of movie you don't like. That's sort of the exact type of performance I'm least interested in.
It's a character that's tough.
Yeah, no, I really don't like that kind of thing. But I like the actress so much that it didn't piss me off, I think, as much as it would have.
I think she does it.
She's a good actor.
Pretty well, but it does still fall into that thing of like actors viewing a character's challenges as an opportunity for a skill piece. You know, it becomes that sort of show-offy, like, look how well I can play this person's circumstances thing. That always feels a little gross to me.
Yeah, you know, the Ed Norton specialty.
Yes, we talked about this. I feel like on Beloved as well. The Edward Norton thing of just like, oh my God, look how many ticks I get to play here.
But yeah, I don't know. She's fine. It's weird that she gets the death because I don't know. It's one of those things where like that. I guess that is the kind of character that would get best supporting, someone who's like not there for very much and then dies
and cries a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also feels like a bummer because it's that kind of like, oh, this character is the innocent who needs to die as like the martyr for everyone else to go through some catharsis. The whole construction of it feels kind of cynical to me.
But it's very typical to these kinds of movies that there's
absolutely.
like, right, there will be a big death in the third act and it will sort of shake everything up. And as you say, right. Yeah.
The last performance I want to talk about very briefly before we get to the box office game is this is just the height of Paul Bettany's like, you know what? I absolutely do not want to be a conventionally sexy movie star run. Where Hollywood is just like, this guy is so handsome and so charming. And he's like, oh, only play the least appealing people in the world. Right. And he's doing like this and Da Vinci Code. Yeah.
Da Vinci Code for sure. He plays a lot of villains. He's still in his movie star period because Legion is after this, where he's a shirtless angel with a machine gun. So,
but that is the weirdest movie to want to finally be a conventional movie star in. He's like, oh, you guys want me to be like a buff superhero? I'll do Legion, which is fucking bug nuts and made $2. He also does Priest. He did both of those.
When did he do Knight's Tale? Is that early 2000s?
Knight's Tale's early.
That's breakout,
yes. No,
Bettany. That's when everyone's like, fuck, this guy is outrageous. Like, he's in Gangster #1 as young Malcolm McDowell, and everyone in Britain is like, oh, this guy's like a talent. And then he has Knight's Tale and A Beautiful Mind in the same year.
Right, and Knight's Tale was... Brian Hedgeland wanted him to play the Heath Ledger role. And they went to the studio and they were like, absolutely not. You have to get someone who's also already well known. So he writes that best friend character
it's
Paul
Geoffrey
Bettany.
Chaucer. He plays Geoffrey Chaucer as his best friend and hype man. It's great. It's a great performance.
What a perfect movie.
It's a perfect movie. Obviously, his performance in Master and Commander is one of the great things that I've experienced in my life that I think about all the time. But this is the point,
is like, all these directors were like, fuck, Bettany, that guy's got the juice, right? And so everyone gives him the best friend role to like these big movie stars. And he's playing like Heath Ledger's best friend, Russell Crowe's best friend twice. And people are like, come on, this is like, it's going to happen, right? The guy's so handsome. He's so charming. When you see him in interviews, he does Wimbledon, which is like, here we go, rom-com, him, Kirsten Dunst. And he always talks about
rom-com. Yeah.
And he like hated it. He was like, I hate this. I don't like playing these types of characters. I'm done. And then he's just like villain, scumbag.
He
like
just
Dogsville.
Dang ass freaks, yeah.
Da Vinci Code. The only big movie he stars in playing a non-creep is the voice of Jarvis in Iron Man. And then he's like doubling down. Secret Life of Bees. Young Victoria. He's like, I want to direct a film. Or no, he didn't direct Creation. I always think he did.
That was a passion project for him, but he didn't direct it. I think that he just wanted to do that. That's his passion project. I think he put a lot of his heft into that, and when it didn't work, that's when his career starts to wind down.
He does Priest and Legion with both bomb, and then the thing that saves him is being brought back into Avengers.
Is the Vision thing, yeah.
Right. But since then, his career is like, 4 Marvel movies and Solo. He hasn't done
he
that
has
much
this
other-
movie at Sundance called Uncle Frank that he's the star of, that he's good in. It's a very big actory performance, another Southern movie. It's a bad movie, capital B, bad movie. Alan Ball, 1970s road movie, gay guy goes home, confronts his past. Everything about it, like, how that sounds annoying? It's annoying, but he is good.
So annoying.
He is certainly good, and it's sort of one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, right. I mean, if you let him at something.
I do love that, like, actors, whenever they're trying to be like, yeah, we're really going for it, they want to play like a Southerner. Why does everybody want to play a Southerner? Everyone is so bad at it.
Brits love the accents. They just love to fuck around with accents. I forgot he played the Unabomber in the Unabomber show. I never watched that.
I think
that's
it's
another dang ass freak.
I think it's another like skill piece talent show thing, Jourdain. I think it's like the Southern accent is like such a meal as an actor, and you have so many like regional specificities depending on what era you're in and what specific city and state you're in, that actors are just like, let me at it. I want to spend 6 months listening to like tapes of like Southern Baptists in the 1970s. Like they just love that kind of shit.
Uncle Frank. Yeah. I assume one day when the coronavirus subsides, Uncle Frank will be unleashed on society, and then we'll all get to deal with that fucking thing. But I saw it.
Wait, was that at Sundance this year?
Yeah, it got bought by somebody.
Okay, yeah, no, I mostly saw good movies at Sundance this year.
Yeah, I actually had a great Sundance, and Uncle Frank was one where I was like sitting down and I was like, Alan Ball, I don't know about this. And then, it's Amazon bought it, so I guess Amazon will. All right,
terrible company. It's done many bad things.
Guys, let's play the box office game on this week. Oh, go ahead, Griffin.
No, all I was going to say is it's just wild to think that within this calendar year, Sundance happened like properly. Like at the last moment that you could have a film festival, Sundance happened, a lot of big movies premiered, big acquisitions happened, and now we're like, will there ever be a film festival again? Will movies ever be released in theaters? But that was like...
TIFF is going to be online for press. I think the press isn't coming at all.
Can't wait to log on for TIFF.
Okay, box office game. Box office. All right,
this is a wild box office game. It's October 17, 2008. Secret Life of Bees is opening to $10 million at number 3. It makes 37.
Yeah, it's a big release. And you're also like, it probably never stops being played in English classes, as you said, Jourdain. This is such a high school, middle school, yes.
I assume it's in the mix in some cable channel. I don't know. Who knows?
The book continues to sell well. There was a Secret Life of Bees musical that was about to open off Broadway with LaShawns, and Lynn Nottage wrote the adaptation with Duncan Sheik writing the music.
Wow.
Maybe it's good.
Sam Gold directed it. Like it was like hyped up as like this might be a big Broadway musical, and then Broadway shut down as well. But it's like clearly this material still seems to have juice. I don't know. People like finding about that secret life that bees live.
You think they're going to have real bees on stage?
They should. They should unleash them every performance.
The bees are the chorus. They're a bunch of
people
dancers.
in bee costumes like the early SNL days.
It's just Jerry Seinfeld from Bee Movie, like descending from the ceiling.
I think Jourdain is right. I think they should reuse the exact Killer Bees costumes. I think the entire ensemble of dancers and chorus singers should be wearing Elliot Gould's sweaty bee costume from 1976.
Yes.
Now, number 1 at the box office is a video game movie.
In 2008.
It's new this weekend. Yes.
So it's not Silent Hill.
No, it's unfortunately a video game I've played so many times, and I have played its sequel.
Do you like the game?
I do like the game. It's absurd, but I liked the first 2 games. I did not like the third one.
Here's a question. Was this a pretty quick adaptation, or was it in the works for a while after the game? Like, what's the space?
It was in the works
7
years. It was in the works for a while, but it was one of those video games. Even though it came out back, when video games were, a little less cinematic, like that, it kind of felt like they were like, turn this into a movie. Like it was a very movie.
Oh,
video
it's Max
game.
Payne.
That's right.
Yes, I remember.
With, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, because that game was so cinematic. I loved that first game too when it came out. Everyone's like, oh man, it just feels like you're playing a movie. And then by the time they made it into a movie, everyone's like, we don't really need to see this.
Yeah, Max Payne. That's okay. His name's Max Payne.
He feels pain.
I have no idea what that is, but okay.
Well,
Well,
Mark
in the
Wahlberg
video
pops
game,
pills and shoots people.
Yeah, you're a cop whose family gets murdered, and then you go on the rampage. But in the video game, you could go into bullet time because it was right after the Matrix, so you could slow things down.
David, you are leaving out the most important detail.
What?
That's the element that made everyone think, oh my God, this game is so cinematic. You get to do bullet time sequence. What activates bullet time sequence?
No, it's not taking pills, if that's what you're about to say.
Really? I remember it being that you would take painkillers.
No,
and
you
then
take
go into bullet time.
painkillers to reduce your, to heal yourself.
Are you sure the pills
yes,
don't
you
give
enter
bullet
bullet time by right-clicking. Come on, I played Max Payne. Let's not mess around.
Up Max Payne. This is so because I was a film snub in high school, so I would never watch anything like this. I was just watching.
You didn't want to see Max Payne? The guy's name is Max Payne. Do you understand? There's a subtle illusion.
I was an insufferable kid. I was an insufferable teen.
Right.
I'm just looking at the Max Payne film Wikipedia entry.
That's the one with Mila Kunis in it. I
Yes.
knew Mila Kunis was in a
Yes.
movie that I was like, I like her, but I don't want to watch this. Okay, that was Max Payne.
Right, because this is the same year as Forgetting Sarah Marshall when she's
Yes.
starting to like, right. The poster on Wikipedia for Max Payne, you know, a movie that's called Max Payne, right, is not really like trafficking in subtlety.
No.
The poster is Mark Wahlberg on his knees in the middle of a city street in the rain,
Yep.
looking up to the heavens, holding a handgun in each hand. Like, it looks like this is the most tortured anti-hero. He's in so much pain.
It's black and white with the red, which is sort of like, it's like a Sin City ripoff.
Yeah.
They're clearly trying to sell you on like, this will be like Sin City.
Yes.
Or more like The Spirit. It'll be like
right.
The Spirit.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so Max Payne's
so
number
Max
one at the
Payne,
box
number
office.
one.
Huge film.
Number
everyone
two,
loves it.
Griffin. It's a film that's come at the box office game before. It's a Disney film. It's a children's film. It's
Bolt?
an animal film.
Bolt.
It's not Bolt.
It's not Bolt?
No.
2008. It's live action or animated? Hybrid?
I believe it's live action, but certainly there's some.
So then it's Beverly Hills
some
Chihuahua.
CG. Yeah. It's Beverly Hills Chihuahua. We've talked about it before. I can't remember when it came up, Griff, but it was in some other box office game.
I think it came up in our Raja Gosnell miniseries, did it not?
Right, of course. Yes. Directed by
Never
Raja
been
Gosnell.
podcasted?
Yeah. So Beverly Hills Chihuahua. Anyone wants to say anything about it? No. Okay, we're moving on to the number 4 film at the box office. Another failed Oscar play, a biopic by a big director, but he's kind of on the downswing.
I'm sorry to move backwards. I have one brief thing I want to say
Jesus.
about Beverly Hills Chihuahua. You opened the floor. I'm allowed
I
to
closed
say
the
this.
floor.
No, I
All right,
reopened
go
it
ahead.
for a second. Beverly Hills Chihuahua is an interesting phenomenon to me, which I feel like it's very paired up with Kangaroo Jack, where the trailer is focused on one sequence that is not indicative of the rest of the movie. So Kangaroo Jack was sold so entirely on the sequence of Kangaroo Jack talking to the camera
Right,
and
'cause
rapping.
they had to add more of it.
No, most of the movie is a completely non-anthropomorphized kangaroo who's being chased by Anthony Anderson and Jerry O'Connell because the kangaroo has money in its pouch, which they need to
Right.
recover. And then
Well,
there's
in a jacket that they put on the kangaroo for fun.
because they thought it was funny to take a selfie.
Right,
It's a pretty good premise. I mean, I'm laughing.
But there's one scene in which Jerry O'Connell gets knocked out and has this hallucination in which the kangaroo talks to him and raps. And the advertising campaign was entirely based around the talking kangaroo, which is not.
I was so angry about that as a
Right.
kid. Like, I was like, where is the kangaroo? I don't care about Anthony Anderson. I want the kangaroo.
Right, they just made it seem like that was going to be the entire movie. Snow Dogs did a similar thing with its dream sequence, which is the only sequence where the dogs talk. Beverly Hills Chihuahua is even weirder because it is about talking Chihuahuas, but the trailer was just this entirely CGI, like Aztec monument with Chihuahuas doing a big Busby Berkeley number and singing. So they advertised it as if it was Happy Feet for Chihuahuas. And then the movie is like a Chihuahua gets lost and has to find its way back home.
But is it like
Yes.
more focused on humans, or it's still just focused on the dogs?
I'd say it's closer to like, it's half and half, but it's not what the trailer made it seem, which is a Happy Feet-esque. Here's just a world, a society of Chihuahuas singing and dancing. Anyway, the floor is closed on Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
It's a
Number 3
biopic,
at the box
Griffin.
office.
4.
Number
3 is bees.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Oh, can I answer?
Yes,
Please.
of course.
I think, is it J. Edgar?
It's not J. Edgar. A great guess. Another biopic from a big director that no one gave a shit about. This
Is it a singer, or is this era over?
no, it's
of, like-
political. So you're in the right wheelhouse there.
And is it a failed Oscar play? Does it get any nominations?
no Oscars for this one.
Oh, it's W?
It's W. Oliver
Oh,
Stone's
yeah.
W.
Yeah.
Released while Bush is still in office.
A
Josh
very bizarre
Brolin.
movie.
You know,
As W.
not a bad movie. I was surprised at how much I watched a bunch of political movies at the beginning of quarantine because I don't remember what my reasoning was. It was some kind of, I was annoyed with white people and I wanted to understand why they mythologized the presidency. That's what it was. And so I watched W, and like out of all of them, it was the one that annoyed me the least. But
Tandy
it's
as
still,
Condi Rice. We were talking Tandy, of course.
It's my favorite Tandy performance. I think she's excellent in it.
She's great
Right?
in that movie.
Did she talk about that in her interview?
She
In the
did, and
Vulture interview?
she said she felt very betrayed by the movie because she thought the film was going to be a lot toothier, and so she's giving this like very big performance. And then as the film went on, Oliver Stone kept on sort of like dulling it down. It is the ultimate, as you said, Jourdain. It is the ultimate not bad, but also not good movie. Like
I
it's
don't
very
understand that movie. Yeah.
bizarre that Oliver Stone made a George W. Bush film in 2008 while he was still in office, and the movie is just kind of in the middle. Like, it's not annoying, but it has no strong angle on anything outside of Tandy Newton, who I think is giving the most sort of like pointed performance in the whole film.
Yeah, it annoys me less than Vice does,
Oh,
so that's nice.
It is
Vice
much
is
better than
fucking
Vice.
terrible.
Yeah.
God, I wonder though, is Vice more interesting than W?
No,
Just because
no,
it's so
W's
bad.
better. W's better.
No, I'm not talking about better. I'm not talking about better. Better is not a conversation.
W is more interesting because it is.
It's so milquetoast, and it was directed by a maniac. Whatever. W.
I don't know.
It's a question mark,
Like
that one.
JFK, which I hate, is like I hate it, but like you can tell how much Oliver Stone loved making it, and to compare it to W, it doesn't make sense.
It's very weird.
The
Number
fifth
5.
film at the box office, I feel like it also comes up a lot for us. It's an actor having a big star moment. It is technically a hit, as Griffin, you often like to remind me. They made $100 million. You know, like everything's going great for this guy. It's a thriller, sort of a chase movie, sort of a spy movie, but doesn't
guy's
exist.
Killing it. It's a spy movie. It does. Oh, it's Eagle Eye.
Eagle Eye. Shia.
I feel like I
Michelle.
constantly have to remind people how consistent Shia's run was there.
Right. But I think Eagle Eye is one of those fake hits where, yes, the studio crawled it over $100 million. Yes, people saw it, but not one person knows that movie exists.
No.
It had no.
I already forgot which movie you're talking about.
Eagle
What are we talking?
Eye. The eye is looking. It's
Eagle. Oh, okay, got it. I've seen Eagle Eye.
Oh, yeah.
I do not remember it.
I remember that in the trailer, because he's getting framed or whatever, right? He gets dragged into a room and he's like, "What's going on?" And Billy Bob Thornton comes in and says, "You're in a whole mess of trouble, son."
Absolutely.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I do not want Billy Bob Thornton to ever say that to me. That's when you know you're in trouble, when Billy Bob Thornton is entering the room. He's clearly an agent of some sort of, government. And he says, "You're in a mess of trouble?"
Worst
Come
case
on.
scenario. The reason I bring it up so much is that movie comes out sandwiched in between Indiana Jones and Transformers 2. And Spielberg was so behind Shia. Like, DreamWorks produces Disturbia. He plucks him from that and puts him in Transformers, then makes him the new, hope for Indiana Jones. And Spielberg kept on doing the press being like, I'm telling you, this guy is Tom Hanks. Shia LaBeouf is Tom Hanks. He's going to be America's favorite, super likable, non-problematic movie star. And then Eagle Eye is the one where they were like, here you go. We're putting him in a new movie where it's not based on pre-existing IP. After these blockbusters, he has a big sequel lined up. He's going to hit 100 million by himself without any sort of attached franchise. And then after that, he does Transformers 2, Wall Street 2, Transformers 3, and then is like, I fucking hate being a movie star. That's when Shia starts eating Hollywood.
Remember when he watched all his movies at the IFC Center or Angelica, wherever it was?
Look, I'm pro Shia. I just think that film's fascinating as the last gasp of
There's good and bad.
the Spielberg movie star machinery. We're going to make this guy work.
Yeah. I still haven't seen Honey Boy. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, I'm a big
It's
fan.
great.
Big
I
fan.
love Honey Boy.
Honey Boy's good. That is it. You've also got Ridley Scott's Body of Lies.
Doesn't exist.
You've got, topical Quarantine. Remember that movie? You also have opening at 9th, Sex Drive, the movie where the kids have to drive because of sex.
To have sex.
Yes.
I was a big fan of Sex Drive. I mean, I was the right age to give
I
a
remember
shit
it
about
being
Sex
cute.
Drive.
I love a movie title that just says exactly what it is.
That is exactly what it is.
They have to go on a sex
delivers
drive.
Exactly those things. And also a lot of Amish people and also Fall Out Boy show up. I remember
Fall Out Boy is in it physically?
Fall Out
Yes.
Boy physically shows up.
They play
in
themselves.
Sex Drive. Yes.
Wow.
It's great.
I remember James Marsden pops up.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Seth Green plays one of the Amish people, right?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He's very funny in that movie.
It's one of those tail end movies from the sort of teen sex comedy
the American
resurgence.
Pie
Yeah.
kind of.
It's one of the last ones where they're like, we can still just fucking throw this shit at the screen, right? And I feel like it just eventually they just stopped, I guess.
Yeah.
Sex Drive is really at the tail end. It's Sex Drive, it's Easy A, and then I don't really know if there's really anything after Easy A
I guess
for a long
Easy
time.
A, right, was sort of let's do a higher quality version of these.
Right.
Not that, I
Yeah.
like super bad or whatever, but right, it's, yeah.
They learn about the Scarlet Letter and it's interwoven into the plot as opposed
Right.
to just
One of those.
I don't know.
But Sex Drives feels like the last of the R-rated sex-based teen comedy.
Well, it's just
Right.
what's
Very
the plot?
much.
They want to fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, they
Right.
do?
They wanna
well, tell me more. I don't know. They
Right.
need a car? There's just, it's a
I
lot
also
going
love
on.
the joke in that movie where Clark Duke is the hot guy. I love that joke.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's the weird joke of the movie. It's that everybody thinks that he's hot and that's supposed to be fun. He's a nice boy.
Yeah. No, but it's
pretty
the
hot.
Ishtar joke, which I always find funny, which is just put a character on screen who does not seem conventionally sexy and have everyone in the universe of the movie lose their minds over him.
He literally a woman, one of the Amish girls falls in love with him and he just moves into the Amish community. That's the ending for that character.
Pretty cool. Pretty fucking cool.
But 2008 seems like a bad year for movies. Seems like
good
Well,
year.
it's the Slumdog year, which is
Right.
so it's a weird year. I'm sure, there's good movies that year, but it's kind of the big year because that's the Iron Man year. So it is kind of the beginning of the end in a way.
And Dark
right?
Knight. It's
And
the year
Dark
that
Knight.
breaks Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the year where it's
I know.
fuck.
my favorite movie from 2008 was Synecdoche, New York.
Also my
Ditto.
favorite movie from 2000.
One of my 10
Yeah.
favorite movies of all time.
Yes.
But 2008 is the year where Iron Man and Dark Knight like roll the die. They cast the die for the next 10 years of Hollywood. And also the year in which the Oscars start losing their fucking minds because they don't nominate Dark Knight. And they start like
doing like the 10 movie thing.
They do the 10 the following year because this year the 5 is so bad. And they feel like they lose ratings because they don't nominate Dark Knight. So then they go chasing that. Like 2008 is the beginning of the end for everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been our episode on The Secret Life of Bees.
Buzz, buzz, buzz.
Buzz, buzz.
Yeah.
Jourdain, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Of course. Also, did this come out the same year as B Movie?
I think the movie might be a year prior.
B-Movie comes out when I'm in college. So that's
America has bee fever.
Yes.
It was
Like-
bee fever. Anyway.
Right.
As we know from B-Movie, Honey just got funny. So like, you know,
We know
obviously. Right.
Jourdain, people should listen to your podcast. Bad Romance.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You co-host with the great Brownwyn Ariel Isaac, and then Browse Held High. You co-host with Kyle, your partner, and that's accessible on Patreon.
Yes, yeah, that's on Patreon. Kyle is very new to podcasts, so I'm going to show him how to like put it online so that other people can listen to it. But yeah, it's us talking about art house films. The first episode is on Antichrist. The second episode is on Peter Greenaway's The Pillow Book. Yeah, so like I think we might be doing High Rise next.
Hey.
So that'll be fun.
I gotta say, High Rise is a movie I've been
High Rise
thinking
will be
about
off next time.
a lot recently. Kyle off screen saying he's pro High Rise.
Kyle now on screen, real quick.
I'm fetching pants. Don't mind me.
He's just here
apologies
for
on that.
pants.
I keep on thinking about High Rise while being in lockdown. That's all I'm gonna say.
High Rise good. High Rise
Yeah.
good.
High Rise good. And thank you for being on the show, Jourdain.
Of course.
And thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate,
Sometimes
review,
I feel like you
subscribe.
just don't want to end the show, Griffin.
Yeah, it's almost like this is maybe the only form of social interaction I have anymore.
Well, I love to interact. It's
Yeah.
great to interact.
But David, the point is,
Mm.
we gotta thank Lane Montgomery for our theme song.
Sure.
We gotta thank Pat Reynolds and Joe Bowen for our artwork, and for co-producing the show, and Rachel Jacobs for her editing assistance. And we gotta tell people, we gotta tell them to go to patreon.com /blank check, where they can listen to Mission Impossible commentaries. And we gotta tell them to go to reddit.com
Griffin,
/blankies
please stop.
for some real nerdy shit.
This is interminable.
And David, look me in the eyes. Look me in the eyes, David.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, David, I gotta tell you that you got me straight tripping, poo.
No, God.
Get out.
How do I mute another person on Zoom?